Okay, I'm going to call the meeting of next, the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. We'll begin with a roll call.
Mr. Patches,
Present.
Ms. Wells,
Here.
Ms. Tabachnik,
Here.
Mr. Cantor,
Here.
Ms. Langallis.
Here.
Mr. Rowena,
Here.
Mr. Williams,
Present.
Ms. Lankowski, and Mr. Schulman.
Here.
Okay.
We have two members who could not make the meeting this evening, which means we have three vacancies. So I'm going to seat all three of the alternates for tonight's meeting. With that, we very quickly review and action on pending applications. We have an old application, 2022-27 Cam, William and Jillian Graves, 52 Samus Street. This is a modification to conditions of approval for a single-family residence. The previous issue we had with this property was whether they needed to install a sidewalk in front of their property. There are no adjoining sidewalks on either side of the property, nor, I believe, is there a sidewalk within about 400 or 500 feet. Last time we met and discussed this, TMP was insisting that they install a sidewalk. TNP is no longer insisting on that sidewalk. As a result, I think we're prepared to move on this issue. We have a new resolution.
Yes.
Can I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So move.
Okay, Mr. Rowena has moved. Is there- And Mr. Williams has seconded. Any comment from members of the commission? All right, if not, then we'll go directly to a vote. I suspect on this one, we can do raising of hands. Steve, can we take this down so I can see everyone?
Yeah, my Zoom is crashing on my screen. So
Oh.
I'm trying to.
Ooh. Just tap the box.
There we go. Okay, all of those in favor of approval of the resolution, please raise your hands. And it looks to me as if,
I'm going to abstain. You can't see me. I'm abstaining.
okay, so it passes. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Mr. Graves. Next, we'll return to the public hearing on ONG Industries. As you remember from last week, we basically ran out of time during the public comment period. So we now wish to give those people who did not have an opportunity to speak, but who wish to speak, that opportunity. I believe we'll begin where we left off with the list last week. When we've completed that list, we will, as we did last week, go back and forth between someone online and someone in the audience until everyone has had an opportunity to speak.
Can you start? Certainly.
Sure.
So I'm going to apologize in advance because I cannot make out all these names. Last name was Fredericks. I think it begins with a G. Fredericks. Greer. No taker. Okay. Diane Lauricella. This was from the last meeting. Someone signed you up. John Descala? Okay. I didn't sign you up either. So. Okay. Michael Monteleone? That's all your group? You're gonna wait? Okay, it was Brian Sandred? Yep.
I'll remind you and any other speakers, please begin by giving us your name and your address.
Had some slides to.
Is that who you emailed me? Either?
Yeah, I emailed you that.
Give me just a second.
All right, thanks. Ryan Sandrib, 4 Daskams Lane, Norwalk. Been a resident in Norwalk for 8 years now. For the past 3 years, I've lived at 4 Daskams Lane, the Riverway condos along the Norwalk River. Love the location. It's been easy access. It's quiet. The Riverwalk Trail runs along outside of the condos. And it's part of the Norwalk River Valley Trail system, runs right outside of our condos. It's also a stone's throw away from Wall Street and walking distance to Sono. Moved to this condo for the walkability, access to Wall Street, recreational activities in the Norwalk River, and the activities it supports. I'm gonna reference this map in a second, so just bear with me for a moment. I'm an avid runner, cyclist in the area. Often faced with the challenge of either trying to cross the busy East Avenue and head up into East Norwalk for exercise, or battle my way through Smith Street while dodging landscaping trucks, paving trucks, and tree trimming trucks to make my way to Wall Street. And from there, head on into Sono. The second option towards Sono is preferable, but the existing status of Smith Street, there's little to no room to navigate on foot or bike. Trucks are entering and exiting from either direction. There's zero traffic patterns, and cars are speeding through the area, trying to avoid the congestion on East Avenue. This past week, while I was on a run, I had to wait outside the Save a Tree location as a procession of trucks proceeded up in the morning towards Hubble Lane and Movies Lane. There's about 10 trucks that were leaving the location. This is frequent on a daily basis. You'll find that they all leave at the same time, exit out Hubble's Lane and onto East Avenue. The congestion's unsafe. Conditions for pedestrians right now are exasperated with the proposed, they exit on Hubble's Lane and then sometimes on Moody's Lane as well. There's 2 ways to leave the Riverway condo on foot or bike to avoid East Avenue traffic. The routes are to either proceed along the Norwalk River Valley Trail towards 95, which is really only accessible by foot because of the disjointed trail system that exists today. Or you can proceed on Smith Street and exit near the head of the Harbor Apartments onto Wall Street. Then while you're on Wall Street, the best way to avoid West Avenue traffic is across the Norwalk River Valley or the Norwalk River and take your first left onto Commercial Street, head towards Sono. You can see this outlined here by the highlighted map. You can see the route. The problem with this route that's highlighted is that as soon as you make your left onto Commercial Street, you're met with the concrete trucks entering and exiting from the Divine Brothers site. These trucks have a trail of dust up and down the Commercial Street, making it hard to see and breathe. I make mention of this to use as a reference point for a similar environment that could be produced from the O&G facility on Smith Street. Oftentimes on Commercial Street by Divine Brothers, I'm blinded by the amount of dust kicked up from trucks and cars. On Commercial Street, my nostrils and lungs are filled with harmful particulate matter. And there's also a street sweeper that attempts to clean up this dust on a regular basis, but quite often there's still a large amount of gravel that's left behind. We shouldn't aim to replicate this type of environment on the other side of the river for the O&G site. I want to share a recent picture. If you can go to the second slide. Of the barges currently occupying the Norwalk River from Divine Brothers, facility taken from this past Monday, June 24th. You can see the way the barges are positioned on the river with a view from Wall Street downstream. And then from the Riverway condos, if you go to the next slide, you can see the way the barges are facing and the position of the river going upstream as well. These barges at Divine already disrupt the flow of recreational boat traffic and occupy a large portion of the river with. I'll also make mention of the walkability in this area today. Area along Smith Street is part of the Norwalk River Valley Trail System, which is on this map here. And connects to Wall Street. You can see the highlighted in yellow portion of the map I took from the Norwalk River Valley Trail website. Increased truck traffic, pollution, noise, and dust in this area disrupts any vision of making this a walkable, pleasant area. You can see that the trail is the exact same route that the trucks will be crossing to enter and exit the O&G facility. Currently today, if you're walking along this path on Smith Street, you'll find a lot of people that seem to be lost as they're trying to navigate the Norwalk River Valley Trail system. I've been approached by a few over the years that I've spent at the Riverway condos. They're often asking for directions, trying to figure out which way they are. And on either side, there's trucks and industrial buildings that seem kind of out of place for the trail. I assure them they're heading in the right direction, point them towards the Riverwalk alongside the Norwalk River outside the Riverway condos. And then they proceed on their way. The proposed modifications to the O&G facility only make this area less walkable and unsafe for residents in the area. The O&G expanded use of the asphalt plant also interrupts the main corridor connecting the Norwalk River residential community with the revitalizing Wall Street business district. The increased truck traffic and unsafe conditions results in a choke point for foot traffic and bikers headed towards the Wall Street area using Smith Street. The sight, sounds, and conditions of the O&G facility produces will result in residents avoiding this area, inhibiting foot traffic that the Wall Street businesses really rely on. I can't imagine in this area, as the current status stands today, trying to navigate more truck traffic as you're trying to walk and bike in the area. Witness the sight of barges going up and down the river and clogging recreational boaters and rowers as they have to bear sight and sound of barges being constantly offloaded in the area. Hope that the commission today will listen to others, including myself, as we describe some of the unsafe conditions that already exist on Smith Street, and then our concerns over the modifications to the O&G facility. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe the first name is Vera from 10 Morgan.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. My name is Vara Nevero. My husband is David Turk. He's not able to be here. I'm speaking on behalf of both of us. I'm going to start with what he had to say. And again, I am audible.
Yes.
Okay, and we know that I'm at 10 Morgan because you said so. So David Turk shares these insights. Cities change. Norwalk has changed. The city was much more industrial in the 1990s when we bought our home here. The O&G asphalt noise along the river was audible on Morgan Avenue. We smelled the fumes from the asphalt. Then O&G stopped manufacturing asphalt and the developers began to line the formerly industrial east side of the river, offering housing that attracted young families, white-collar professionals who work in New York City, Stamford, and White Plains, and also retired couples. The housing complexes were built on either side of the O&G site. Residents of Norwalk now have a very different expectation of the city than in the late 1990s and the early 2000s. And the city itself is envisioning ways to make it more welcoming to people who want to walk, bicycle, go to restaurants, shop, and appreciate the Norwalk River Valley Trail and the Norwalk River itself with many boats and the wildlife. And this has obviously been discussed, but I'm not going to drop things out. The return of O&G with a plan to reinstate an industrial manufacturing site is a disaster, a blast from the past, a past where there was no housing along the river, only abandoned buildings and drug dealers. While the Planning and Zoning Commission cannot consider the disastrous impact of the ONG plan and how it would have, in terms of how it would have an impact on taxes and real estate investments, the P&Z can take into account the city's obligation to promote health and safety. These two factors should be front and center in assessing this application. The green and the surrounding areas are not designed to accommodate the pollution from the barges and the huge trucks or this level of traffic. ONG has said that they are making a difference by getting their trucks off I-95. This is absurd. I-95 was built for heavy traffic, including trucks. Our neighborhoods in Norwalk would be severely and detrimentally affected by the pollution, the increased traffic, and so forth as these giant trucks enter narrow residential streets and deafen the neighbors with equipment that is required at the riverside and on the streets. First, there's pollution. Airborne pollution of the particles from the ONG are directly related to a range of cancers and lung disease. The people living in these housing complexes on either side of the ONG site would be directly exposed to these particulates. The emissions from the diesel trucks, with the 80+ ONG trucks per day on the streets, are a known risk for cancer and lung disease. Those who live along East Avenue and the other streets leading off of East Avenue would be exposed to these airborne fumes. The stench of gas on East Avenue right now is very unpleasant. Adding more vehicles that emit diesel fumes would be horrific. These trucks should not be allowed in a densely populated community with narrow streets. A long wait at every light on East Avenue at the intersections, sometimes for as long as 4 minutes, could result in significant additional amounts of fumes and pollution. Large diesel trucks driving along Park Street would pollute both the green and the housing across the street. People living on intersecting streets such as Bettswood Road and Park Hill Avenue across the green from Park Street would also be affected, as would St. Paul's Church. It's not just the various streets that lead to East Avenue that would be affected. ONG has not indicated in any detail where those trucks go after they leave Park Street. Will they go up France Street? Will they turn on North Avenue? If they turn left onto North Avenue, will they continue towards West Avenue along North Avenue? Will they go right onto North Avenue and then turn onto Newton Road? Obviously, actually East Avenue for a bit. Will they turn right and then go back onto East Avenue and go back down East Avenue to I-95? Yes, they will. And as the document from their application states, 1/3 of trips would be oriented to the north on Park Street, which connects to towns to and from the west. So they're polluting an entire area from here to the west. 1/3 of the trips would be oriented on East Avenue to Wilton and Weston, and 1/3 would be oriented to northeast on East Avenue toward I-95, South Norwalk and East Norwalk. So in fact, that leads us to an increase of the number of these trucks on East Avenue. What does this mean? It means that heavy trucks will be going up France Street and Newtown Avenue, both of which are narrow residential streets with homes close to the road, and the families living there would be directly affected by the fumes. It means that 1/3 of these trucks would go down Park Street, turn onto North Avenue toward West Avenue, a street that is a crawl many times a day. And of course, 1/3 of the trucks would go up North Avenue and then turn onto East. Newtown Avenue and Route 53. And again, this is not just 80 trucks a day on East Avenue. Traffic. The surge of trucks coming from Moody's Lane, Hubbell's Lane, East Avenue, and Park Avenue would have multiple negative effects on the neighborhood. These streets are already clogged with vehicles during the morning and afternoon. The traffic on East Avenue would become significantly more dangerous than it already is. That intersection is very, very complicated and dangerous, with 5 streets, including Hubbell's Lane, intersecting just before the green. Buckingham Place has no traffic light, nor does Moody's Lane. The trucks from O&G would be able to turn on a stop sign, not a traffic light, with the likelihood of multiple crashes. O&G has not indicated whether those trucks leave Park Street, and that has not been discussed at all, nor has the effect on the larger Norwalk area. These intersections are not designed to accommodate huge trucks or this level of industrial vehicles. These trucks are definitely not ready for this kind of expansion. And some of the trucks that actually create more traffic are probably the worst part, that this is not actually just 80 trucks. It's more than 100 per day. Noise. Residents along East Avenue, Park Street, Morgan Avenue, Colonial Place, Buckingham Place, Lockwood Lane, Moody's Lane, Park Street, Bettswood Road, Park Hill Avenue, France Street, and all other adjacent streets would be bombarded with constant noise from the triaxle trucks daily from early morning till early evening. The 2 funeral homes, one at the intersection of East Avenue and Hubbell's Lane, and the other at East Wall Street near Park Street, would be seriously affected by the noise during the funerals. The quiet and beautiful Mill Hill Cemetery and the entire Mill Hill Historic District would be affected by the noise from the diesel trucks. The residents in the housing along the river would be bombarded with noise from the equipment at the site. The noise from Divine Brothers across the river is already affecting residents, but it was in effect when they chose to live along the river. The city of Norwalk has indicated that it envisions a place that residents truly love. There's boating, biking, walking, running along the river, following nature trails and walkable streets, pedestrian-friendly and safe sidewalks, restoration of historic homes and churches, outside dining, child-safe places, including safe streets. We hope, and this is speaking for David and myself, the P&Z Commission will reject the O&G application and honor the vision of the city, accepting that that application would be a decision to travel back in time to the industrial past of Norwalk. Norwalk is no longer that city. We petition you to choose a brighter future, a vibrant, thriving, contemporary city that protects all those who live there, including not only the humans, but the animals and the rest of nature, and protecting them from pollution, excessive traffic, and noise. This is my own contribution to the conversation. Like many other residents who live or work or own properties near the Norwalk Green, I am very concerned about the O&G plan. I agree that the views that have been shared already are excellent and want to emphasize several key concerns. I have lived in Norwalk for 26 years and have watched much of the city evolve from a scrappy industrial urban setting to a fabulously welcoming residential community. First, I am very disturbed by the threat of severe pollution that would be caused by the surge of emissions from the heavy trucks coming up from Smith Street via Moody's Lane and Hubbell Lane to East Avenue and Park Street. If this plan is approved, those of us who live in the neighborhood will be physically affected by hundreds of large trucks which are emitting diesel stench and carrying concrete dust and other small particulates. They will add significantly to the fumes that we who live near East Avenue already inhale. And for those who have respiratory problems already, as I do, the conditions will be exacerbated. Second, the fumes and particulates are not the only dire risk generated by this application. There is also the extremely loud noise from these vehicles. Picking up on what was said in the previous presentation, I have walked past Divine Brothers, the concrete company on 33 Commerce Street. They had a large truck running. The sound and the stench emitted by the truck was truly unbearable. Putting my fingers in my ears barely reduced the sound. I couldn't close my nostrils or cover my face, so I breathed in the fumes and was coughing. People who have lived on the waterfront on the east side of the river hear these trucks and other industrial noise from Divine Brothers, but at least it's across the river. If O&G were to restart their business on the east side along Smith Street, those residents would hear that same roaring noise from the trucks dozens and dozens of times a day right at their side. And if there were trucks driving up from Smith Street to East Avenue and driving past the green, they would generate the same excruciating, damaging noise. That noise is very, very bad for children. I am quoting from an article published by the BBC today titled "How Traffic Noise Hurts Children's Brains," in which the author states, defined as unwanted or disturbing sounds, noise pollution from increasing traffic can have a detrimental impact on babies and children's health and development. Environmental noise, particularly road traffic noise, is among the most damaging environmental factors to health after air pollution. Such noise has been found to increase chronic stress and cause disturbed sleep and higher blood pressure. Noise and noise annoyance has been associated with mental health issues such as depression and anxiety, and noise exposure has been associated with greater diabetes risk. Loud noise can, over time, lead to hearing loss and I can never say it, I'm not even going to, hearing loss. In this impact, the rumbling and growling and roaring of 80+ diesel trucks a day for 10 to 12 hours a day, that is not what we want for Norwalk's heavily populated historic district. Trucks trundling along Park Street and the green that create unpleasant noise for all of those who live on that quiet, beautiful street, and for those who like to gather on the green, is a disaster. I would note that the only time I have ever seen as many huge, noisy trucks a day on East Avenue was when an exit on I-95 was closed. The most recently, when the fiery crash under the Fairfield Avenue Bridge closed I-95 at exit 14 on Thursday, May 2nd. Surely, we do not want to replicate this nightmare as a daily routine in the historical district. Third, because East Avenue and the other streets that intersect are already incredibly complicated, it is extremely dangerous to drive there. The larger the vehicles are, the higher the risk is. Furthermore, these huge trucks would also need to use Moody's Lane, which is too narrow to accommodate such vehicles and only has a stop sign. If a traffic light were to be installed, then East Avenue would be even more cluttered with vehicles. The lower part of Moody's Lane along one of the waterfront complexes is definitely part of the problem. It's just not accessible. Also, as noted in my partner's observations, trucks do not just disappear into thin air when they drive down Park Street. They are likely to actually cause even more problems outside of the historical district. And we have to take into account the fact that there is no control on the number of trucks that O&G actually plans to use. 80 is a guesstimate. They've suggested that there could be more than 10 or 12 barges. They've suggested that there may be more than 80 trucks. Fourth, I believe that I also heard the attorney for O&G say that if the site is occupied, Smith Street would be completely closed off on either side of the property. I am not certain that that is the case, but if it is so, then people who want to be able to walk along the river will be effectively prevented from doing so. To enter Smith Street from Wall Street, one could go no farther than where Sava trucks are currently parked. People would then have to turn around, turn right to walk up Hubbell's Lane, potentially dodging huge trucks, and turn right onto East Avenue. Walk along East Avenue to Moody's Lane and then turn right and down the hill, again, possibly with numerous trucks, and turn left into the area where the rowing club is currently located, but which may have to relocate if O&G is granted permission to restart its business. Last, and definitely not least, the Norwalk River itself will be severely harmed by the plan. 26 years ago, David and I moved to Norwalk. And that same year, the vision statement of Norwalk Watershed Initiative Committee was released. In the statement, the committee wrote that we envision a restored Norwalk River watershed system that is healthy and dynamic, in which a diversity of fresh water and fish, as well as other wildlife and plants, are at once again sustained, one in which the river system is an attractive community resource that enhances the quality of life, education, tourism, and recreation, and above all, one in which growth respects this vision and all people participate in the stewardship of the watershed. Norwalk has 26 years later achieved this vision in many respects, but if O&G's plan is implemented, the watershed will be degraded severely, and the humans, the wild creatures, and the river itself all will be seriously harmed. In the presentations on Thursday last week, O&G's attorney stated that the Norwalk River, while it has in it the DNA for industrial uses, it could also support the delicate balances that residents could enjoy with the river, while O&G also offered a valued service for the area. She also stated that there would be limited impact for the proposed plan, and she said that there would be landscaping to spruce up the space, and also noted that there would be no environmental factors involved with the barges or the particulates or the deafening trucks. Yet, the speakers pointed out that the river would be clogged with barges. The barges would block the boats from the 112-year-old boat club. The many young rowers would be at high risk of injury because of the sheer number of barges moving through the water. The noise and pollution from the trucks would devastate the wildlife, while also causing stress and even hearing loss and respiratory problems for the residents in the housing complexes and elsewhere in the neighborhood. A woman who lives on Melbourne Road wrote to the commission on June 20th, saying that both she and her mother have asthma, and she fears, as I do, that if O&G were to occupy the space again, the current high quality of air in this area in Norwalk would degrade. And what about the birds? According to a site on birds, noise pollution typically refers to unwanted sounds that result from human activities and affects birds in numerous ways, such as physical harm, stress responses, changes in feeding and reproduction, interference with the ability to hear other important sounds, and potential changes in the size of populations. O&G has claimed that there will be very little noise generated by their activities, but the sheer number of diesel trucks makes that claim very unconvincing. To conclude, residents in the housing complexes, people who live in the surrounding neighborhoods, those who walk along the Norwalk River, the children and teenagers who row on the river, the hundreds of birds and thousands of fish, and the many other wild animals who depend entirely on the river, all would be seriously harmed if this plan were accepted. I do not want to see a beautiful community in the very heart of Norwalk being devastated by huge barges clogging the river while huge trucks roar by on East Avenue on their way to disrupt other residential areas in Norwalk and beyond. I don't want to inhale the stench of the diesel fumes that will aggravate my chronic asthma. I don't want to be deafened by the sound of diesel trucks revving at the stoplight on Hubbell's Lane while I walk over to Mill Hill, or waking up at 7 a.m. and hearing the trucks roaring along the green. I don't want to have to walk on the green while wearing earbuds to fend off growls from giant trucks trundling along Park Street or smell the fumes. and cough because the particulates have polluted the air. Please save the Norwalk River and the Norwalk Green and the Boat Club and the Norwalk River Valley Trail. Please take into account these concerns, the noise, the traffic, the pollution, and the plan to close off that area on Smith Street, which is part of the fluidity and freedom of the city, are all at stake. That's it.
Eden Kathy Thomas. Larry, can you bring the next, there's a Michael Monteleone. He was signed up on the last,
Yeah,
he's online.
I know. He's part of.
Oh, he's with your group? All right, we'll skip him. Last name, maybe Bennett, 7 Morgan Ave. Justin Bone, 9 Morgan Ave. You were last name? Okay. David McElroy. This was David McElroy.
Can I ask a question if I could get an opportunity to speak later on? I do own adjoining property and I was never notified by ONG.
You'll have an opportunity to speak.
Good evening, zoning board members. Thanks for giving me a chance to voice my concerns regarding the ONG plan site tonight. My name is David McElroy. I live on 20 Melbourne Road, which is 1 block from this building, along with my wife and 2 young children who attend the preschool next to St. Paul's. East Avenue is about 5 or 6 doors down from my house. Just first like to say I've been really impressed with everyone who's spoken so far. I'd like to point out just some things quickly that I've observed. I'd like to point out the mathematical improbability of 2 barges sitting side by side between Divine and ONG sites. Norwalk residents last week provided photos and testimony of how unlikely and untenable that scenario would be. I'd also like to echo Brad Craighead's finding that the Harbor Commission application by ONG describes the increase in barge traffic as being for an existing use, but everyone in this room knows that the ONG site has not been used by ONG for about 15 years. If this level of truth is what we're dealing with, I'm not very confident in the rest of the facts presented by ONG. Facts such as only 8 barges a month will be coming through the harbor. As Mr. Wagner explained last week, the ONG reactivation is in response to demand. Logic dictates that demand can go up, along with the number of barges making their way into the harbor. It's worth noting that there are ONG waterfront locations that are more conveniently accessible, not past 2 drawbridges located in Bridgeport and Stamford. What percentage of Connecticut is closer to Norwalk than either Bridgeport or Stamford? Norwalk itself and maybe parts of Wilton and Weston and Westport, and that's about it. So let's say some of these trucks are going to Wilton. Well, just a few blocks northwest of ONG's site is the burgeoning downtown of Wall Street. Wall Street is going to be solidified as a great neighborhood with upcoming adjustments to the streets to make them more pedestrian friendly via state transportation funding. Knowing this, ONG has pinky swore that their triaxle dump trucks will not make a left from East Avenue or the other streets onto Wall Street. But do we believe this? How many drivers will get off 95 onto East Avenue, see the southbound traffic on East Avenue, and swear under their breath they're not going to wait to get back on 95? The Route 7 connector is very easily accessible. You just got to go through Wall Street. I highly doubt drivers will add time to their trip in order to adhere to a promise that someone they've never met has made in a meeting they were not invited to. One thing not mentioned is that the aquarium, not yet mentioned, sorry, is the aquarium and the Sheffield Island Cruise Company have set up a new dock on just off of Water Street on the sound side of the walk bridge in order to decrease the amount of traffic through the walk bridge. This new dock will be in use until the walk bridge is scheduled to be completed around 2029. If Norwalk institutions that benefit Norwalk residents like these are making it easier for the walk bridge project to be completed in a timely manner, why are we allowing a long dormant operation like ONG to take their place in water traffic? In 2022, Norwalk commissioned a land use strategy with regard to the Norwalk River. The study found that Norwalk residents desire a more open access to the river. and a walking loop around the harbor, specifically the northeast side of the harbor. The study noted that the ONG site as it stood in 2022 was an impediment to achieving that consistent walking loop, as well as a potential danger, this is in quotes, to nearby residents due to the tight conditions of Smith Street. Please do not allow that impediment and danger to become even greater. So often traffic is used as an excuse to impede progress. We have a housing crisis, and increasing housing stock undoubtedly increases traffic. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but hopefully the end is in the end, there's a more equitable housing market for potential home buyers. With ONG's plan, there's no doubt that we're increasing traffic, but the citizens of Norwalk are getting nothing in return. I realize that ONG owns this land and this is a site plan review, so the zoning board is limited in how they can say no. The fact is that ONG is asking you a question and you can say no. Attorney Suchi pointed out that the zoning board is charged with determining if the proposal is reasonably likely to unreasonably affect the public trust in a natural resource. I hope everyone's testimony tonight and last week proves just how unreasonable this application is. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you again, as I did last week, the applause, the comments after the speakers only lengthen this meeting. It's not in your best interest. It's not in our best interest for this to take longer than it needs to. So I would ask if you could just show a little bit more self-control. Thank you.
Mark Allen? I thought he did last time. Andrew Skid?
Members of the commission, thank you for allowing me to speak and for your time. I am Andrew Skid of 44 Fox Run Road here in Norwalk. I represent Collins Funeral Home. It has been my family's business for 4 generations, 125 years last year. We have been operating at the current location, 92 East Avenue, since 1964. We are opposed to this application. We provide a full range of funeral services. At this location, families will physically come to our funeral home and meet with us to arrange the appropriate funeral for their needs. These arrangements are for someone who has died or will die soon. As you can imagine, this meeting can be full of emotions and distress. We host wakes or calling hours where people may come and go for several hours, paying their respects with family and friends, and saying goodbye to a loved one. Often the number attending exceeds our parking spaces. Including makeshift parking, we can accommodate about 56 vehicles in our lot. People will have to park at other locations around the immediate area and walk to our facility. We have hosted small wakes and massive wakes exceeding over 1,000 people in a single evening. These people will, on foot, cross East Avenue, Hubbell's Lane, West Avenue, and many of the side streets. Much of this is also true for funeral services held throughout the day. Funerals may begin on site where mourners can attend a short visitation and leave before the services, or they may stay throughout and follow in procession to another location. While we maintain driveways on both East Avenue and Hubbell's Lane, our primary driveway for a funeral procession to egress is Hubbell's Lane. This is done for traffic safety, as there is a traffic light at this driveway allowing for safe passage. These processions can range from just a few cars to well over 50. Egressing the property with a coherent funeral procession onto Hubbell's Lane, already inundated with construction vehicles, would be nearly impossible with the applicant's proposal and certainly add severe safety risks. Beyond the physical barriers and safety of entering and exiting the premises, there is the noise, dirt, and smells, not only from the exhaust and loads carried by the trucks exiting Hubbell's Lane, but also from the operations at the ONG site itself. The site sits directly across Smith Street and below Collins Funeral Home. The funeral home has been operating in Norwalk for a long time, and it is our business to serve this community, your neighbors and mine. We provide services for some 200 families a year. The types of funeral services we provide are varied, just as the people who make up this community are diverse. However, one characteristic that is essential to all these people, all these families grieving the loss of a loved one, is an environment of respect with tranquility and order. Having an operation on the scale that the applicant is requesting would drastically affect not only our ability to physically operate, but would also reduce, if not destroy, this essential quality altogether. The applicant states in accordance with the zoning regulations that they will not have an adverse impact. It is impossible for them not to have a massively devastating effect on our property and business and the people we employ, and more importantly, the community we serve, many families for generations. Not only our location, but the whole area will suffer. I will end there, as many have spoken on the surrounding detriments of this project. But I would like you to consider how it would be for you attending the services of your friend or family member, the environment you would be in, and for many here have been in. Now realize you are in the middle of a heavy industrial zone. Collins Funeral Home will be bombarded on 3 sides by this project, as we are situated against Smith Street, Hubbles Lane, and East Avenue. This project will destroy my family's legacy of 125 years of service to this community and remove services, though not often mentioned day to day, but undeniably essential. It is our hope that you will reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dolores Noble Stedley, and then we're gonna go online as well. Claire, do you want to pull somebody over? Dolores Stedley? No. That was from the last meeting. Should be set with that list.
All right, we have Michael Ward. Michael, if you unmute. One more time, Michael.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I submitted an email to Mr. Kleppen earlier today, but I just want to follow it up with a couple things. All right. We're
Mr.
looking
Ward,
at,
can you give us your address, please?
11 Rainbow Road,
Thank you.
Norwalk. All right. And Mr. Schulman, I worked for you at the Norwalk Transit when I was a child, a kid. Mr. Rowena, you represented my father when I was a kid.
We were both children.
Yes, we were. All right. I grew up at 44 East Avenue. All right. My backyard had a stream. All right. That stream, my brother and I used to swim down to the Norwalk Boat Club. This project, this Planning and Zoning Commission, all right, has gone out of their way with traffic and mobility. We've got the Norwalk River Valley Trail, all right, that runs right through this proposal. All right, we're trying to go green. We're buying Teslas to try and be green. And now we want to bring in 800 trucks a month. We want to tie up a river, which is being used by youths for their rowing clubs. These are young drivers. They're going to have to navigate around these trucks in the summertime. All right. And just, some really quick numbers here. All right. O&G pays a total of $12,000 in taxes on that property. Because I looked it up, it's online. All right. Head of the Harbor pays $300,000. These are round numbers. Right. They pay $300,000 a year in property taxes. Right. You move that project in, you green light that project, and head of the Harbor, those 60 spacious luxury apartments with balconies and a 400-foot boardwalk just depreciated. And now you're looking for me and my neighbors to pick up the slack in the budget. All right. This is wrong. Norwalk was an industrial town. It is no longer. It is more a tech town. All right. We've encouraged more development of apartments. We've got more traffic now from it. And now you want to put even more traffic on it. Donnie Sexton said it best this afternoon when I was talking to him. It's the antithesis of the Maritime Aquarium that's right downriver. All right. We're trying to preserve our rivers. We're trying to preserve the sound, but yet we're going to bring tugboats up the river, and then we're going to have all the particulate matter that when these barges are unloaded. It doesn't make sense. And I yield my time now. Thank you. I spoke my piece.
Thank you.
Mary Ellen Flaherty Ludwig, followed by Lisa Britton and Nancy McGuire. And if there's anybody that is attending via Zoom, if you want to speak, just use the raise your hand button at the bottom of the screen.
I just pull this down. Hear me okay?
Yes.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary Ellen Flaherty Ludwig, 89 Soundview Avenue, Norwalk. My vantage point in this debate is as a rower on the Norwalk River. I have rowed for Maritime Rowing Club over the last 2 decades. I stand with the detailed and powerful objections that have been raised so far by so many groups. Sue Powers of the Norwalk Boat Club, Anthony Pavia of the City Neighborhood Club, the Norwalk Historical Commission, and those who have spoken today. My purpose is to share 2 additional serious concerns to this whole litany against ONG's request to reactivate their river business. First, let us consider the impact of this barge traffic on the new construction of the walk bridge. They've estimated, and I've heard different, 8 to 12 barges per month. What would that look like? And keep in mind, let's say it's 12, that barge has to go upriver and downriver. So that would be 24 times a month going through these 2 bridges. And what would that look like? Recently, the original walk bridge has been flanked by staging platforms, which extend the narrow width of the bridge. There are 4 new platforms, 2 on the east side, north and south, and on the west side, north and south. Sturdy pilings have been drilled to secure these staging platforms for the work of the 6 cranes and dozens of highly skilled workers preparing building materials. Is that a problem for a barge? Well, in a word, yes. Why? The walk bridge and the Washington Street Bridge do not line up perfectly. As the tugboat captains navigate their barge through the East Channel or the West Channel, they now have 3 times the distance that they are forced to go straight before they ever so slightly veer to the left or right to line up for the second bridge. This can be tricky. When I am bowing a double or a quad, and there's plenty of room on both sides, I still have to be careful to veer a little bit to the left or right, depending on which direction I'm going. And I have plenty of room on both sides. So with the barges, they have far narrower margins. Collisions are a predictable potential. Time is also a concern. How long does the passing under both bridges take? I have watched this process with fascination over the years. This 100-year-old railroad bridge is a wonder of gears and wheels rotating the bridge 90 degrees slowly. So how long? After the workers who control the opening of both bridges say, okay, go to the waiting barge, it's easily 15 or more minutes to pass under. So if we have 12 barges, and let's look at it in a month frame, 24 trips up and down only at high tide, that means that it's 24 times whatever that delay is for the cranes and the boats and the engineers and the heavy equipment operators will be stopped or delayed in their work. And over a period of a month and over a period, and we have 4 or 5 more years of this construction, many, many hours will be wasted. The Walk Bridge is a billion-dollar project. I argue permitting that this is physically irresponsible for the city of Norwalk. My second point is to paint more clearly the risk to inexperienced rowers, as has been mentioned tonight. We have 3 rowing clubs with approximately 300 young rowers, young children who are learning to row, ages 11 through 18. They row every afternoon. Besides the frightening size of the barge, there are other factors to worry about for these young rowers. How will these inexperienced rowers judge how close or how far to be from the barge? The water pushed by a barge remains flat, so that can be deceiving, but it swirls, and for someone unexperienced, they may go too close, no matter how much the coaches have tried to warn them. So this danger of being too close and possibly with our rowing shells of light structure be in danger of an accident. Keep in mind the river, the upriver, and especially near the Yankee Doodle Bridge is very narrow. Serious accidents are also a potential. In sum, I add these 2 concerns of fiscal irresponsibility and potential rowing tragedies to the case for respectfully saying no to the O&G request. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will be brief. Lisa Britton, 19 Shorefront Park. Tonight I'm speaking as founder of the Save Norwalk Neighborhoods Group and chairman of the Norwalk Independent Party Town Committee. I can't possibly be any more passionate or compelling than those neighborhood leaders, residents, and businesses who have spoken tonight and spoke at last week's public hearing. But I also want to voice my opposition to O&G's Industries application to expand their operations on the Norwalk River. I urge you to deny their application. This particular application is probably the trifecta of negative impacts on Norwalk in terms of our waterfront, our city streets, and our air and quality and safety. Their barges will effectively block our narrow part of the channel upriver. Street traffic associated with our trucks will bring fumes, noise, dust, gravel, and potential oil leakage, as is common with old trucks, to the neighborhoods the city has been committed to transforming into densely populated residential properties. So which is it? Residential properties near the waterfront or heavy industrial use for our city center? Every road leading to the center of the city from East Avenue in both directions to Park Street and Wall Street, and likely over to West Avenue, will be impacted by the heavily loaded trucks clogging traffic and taking a toll on our already strained infrastructure. Even the mayor doesn't want this. These past 10 years have seen incredible transformation of our city, but we are still a work in progress. Our streets are torn up due to utility companies putting in cable, sewer, gas, or electrical equipment. The DOT is doing unto us what they will, and who knows when that will end. And parcels of land are being densified at dizzying speed. We're struggling with impassable streets due to on-street parking, and we can't seem to manage neighborhood blight. Just exactly how much more do you think residences and small businesses can take? I urge you to deny this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is John Schultz, followed by David Westmoreland. And again, if there's anybody online, use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen.
Hi, my name is Nancy McGuire. I've owned a business at 64 Wall Street for the past 24 years, and I'm the former president of the Wall Street Neighborhood Association. I'm writing to, I wrote this letter last week, and for the record, I'd like to read it. I'm writing to oppose the approval of the Smith Street site for the O&G cement plant. Even though OG is seeking a reinstatement of the use of site, it has been many decades since the property was used for heavy industrial use. In that time, Wall Street neighborhood has changed dramatically. Many families have taken up residence in newly renovated and added apartments. Many people have invested in the neighborhood and many businesses have located into the neighborhood. Here are just a few points to my opposition. A few years back, I left my office on Wall Street and I wanted to walk across the street to get a cup of coffee. I looked to the right, I looked to the left, and down the street came an 18-wheeler barreling down the road on Wall Street. He slammed on his brakes, looked right at me, and came directly towards me on the curb. I was absolutely shocked. I'm like, what is he doing? I stepped back in shock. He came within 12 inches of the curb where I was standing and made a U-turn on Wall Street. So this is a residential neighborhood. This is a pedestrian neighborhood. So like this, it's not safe for heavy vehicles like cement trucks on these streets. They're narrow, the sidewalks are close to the streets, and there's many people walking up and down them. Likewise, I can't see how East Avenue can fit cement trucks. When I'm driving down East Avenue, I rarely, if ever, pass a truck that's going up and down that street because it's just not enough room. And I am so fearful of having a head-on accident with the oncoming traffic. But I'm not an expert in that matter, but I will tell you, it is really tight. And I see accidents all the time on East Avenue as people are trying to cram in around each other in pedestrian cars. Over the last years, Wall Street's added a number of new apartments, including some in new complexes and many through renovation of upper floor additions to existing retail buildings. Wall Street is now very family-oriented neighborhood. We have a cheerleading and gymnastics team, a softball batting gym, a workout gym, a weight gym, a boxing gym, a dance studio, a yoga studio, a bakery, a taco restaurant, and numerous coffee shops with patios along the street. We even have a day spa now. Despite the embarrassing abandoned POCO development, we've seen more and more people walking, running up and down the street, and pushing baby carriages, people on bicycles, and young people stopping for smoothies, ice cream cones, and bubbly tea. The Norwalk Conservatory, as you know, is a 4-year accredited college. Wow. It is rapidly adding students and plans to grow the school to more than 2,500 students. Can you believe that? Right in your historic downtown. We've already seen the students walking up and down to and from the classes, and we see them along East Avenue, West Avenue, and the streets around Wall Street. The students are already in the coffee shop, in the bakeries. They're in the taco restaurant at lunchtime. It's going to be terribly embarrassing for the City of Norwalk Police Department to have to call a family in New Orleans to tell them that their conservatory student was hit by a cement truck because of poor planning. This is a historic, quaint, pedestrian-oriented downtown. It cannot accommodate a heavy industrial use. While I have the greatest respect for O&G and related to their property and their rights on Smith Street, they've owned that site for many years. And the neighborhood has completely changed around them. Today, this neighborhood cannot accommodate a steady stream of heavy commercial vehicle traffic without putting the pedestrians and the residents at risk. We hope that you will not allow this development. And I thought to add one last thing. I wondered if O&G has tried some of the low-income tax credit deals. You can avoid taxes for a very long time and make it very profitable. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Schultz.
Hello, my name is John Schultz. I live right across the street at 4 Daskams Lane and in the Riverway condominiums right on the river. We moved here from Michigan almost 5 years ago, and so I speak a lot from my experience. I have a major concern with the number of trucks estimated in the project from ONG, the proposed plan from ONG, as well as the size of half of them. 40 dump trucks minimum per day, 200 minimum per month, half of which are estimated to be tri-axle dump trucks. The remaining trucks would be smaller in size. If my memory serves me correct from the last meeting of last week, and I could stand corrected on this, I believe the proposed hours of operation would be approximately between 7:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. weekdays. All trucks bound for the ONG site area would enter via Moody's Lane and exit via Hubble Lane. And the following are again from my own personal experience of the use of both Moody's and Hubble frequently. Moody's Lane is wider than Hubble, but there is a drawback. This street is very narrow where it abuts East Avenue. It is very difficult to enter Moody's if there is a car, let alone a truck from Save-A-Tree or Rabideau Landscaping waiting to exit. What will it take? What will it be like from time to time for the larger trucks coming to the ONG site? I see a potential bottleneck. Additionally, about half of the early morning rowers from the Norwalk Rowing Club usually arrive around 8 a.m. via Moody's, a time when dump trucks bound for ONG Smith Street would be entering. Who gets preference? And I see two different scenarios. One is rather comical. It's the proverbial Gaston and Pierre standing there. After you, no, after you. No, you. And then, as usually happens with people, both start up at the same time, and there's a Mexican standoff. The worst scenario is the hell with you, I'm coming through. Hubble Lane has one advantage over Moody's Lane. As been mentioned frequently tonight already, there's a traffic light for vehicles exiting onto East Avenue with options for streets in 4 different directions. However, the green light is very short in duration. Sometimes 4 cars can make it through, trucks even fewer, large trucks sometimes just 1. And think of very large tri-axle trucks. I have been behind a truck, say, from Rabideau Landscaping loaded down with stone, and they're sitting, number 1, it's in first gear, of course, and man, they floor it, they're barely, with the load, they're barely moving. That's all that gets through. Now, if there are other ones lined up behind, waiting on the street, waiting on Hubble, they're going to move even slower because they're going uphill and so on and so on. So this is the scenario. I see an even more serious concern with the narrow width of Hubble. 2 cars can pass. Two cars can pass without difficulty. A car and a truck with some maneuvering, but a car or a Save-A-Tree vehicle or a Rabideau Landscaping truck against a tri-axle dump truck, forget it. Many cars enter Hubble at all times of the day to connect with Smith Street. Again, what happens when tri-axles are trying to exit? I submit that the potential for serious traffic bottlenecks is rather obvious. Lastly, I'm 84 years of age, and I have a very personal concern because I've been diagnosed 3 years ago, almost 4, with multiple myeloma, a very serious blood disorder. As a result, I am autoimmune compromised. Going forward, what will this mean for me with the fumes from diesel exhaust being pumped into the air so close to me from at least 200 trucks a month, in addition to the ones that are already present? Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
After David is Fred Feeney and Deborah Teetsy.
Good evening. My name is David Westmoreland. I live at 50 Elmwood Avenue. I serve on the Norwalk Redevelopment Agency Commission. I'm chair of the Second Taxing District and I'm a board member of the Norwalk Historical Society. I previously served 9 years on the Norwalk Historical Commission and still provide support to the commission on various projects. I am speaking as an individual this evening and not representing any board or commission that I am on. I am a landscape architect licensed by the state of Connecticut and have worked as a volunteer on improving Mill Hill Historic Park with the Historical Commission and Historical Society for almost 20 years now, restoring the cemetery, designing and building the gardens along with the Norwalk Garden Club. I worked closely with the city to fully restore the 3 buildings at the top of Mill Hill, the 1835 townhouse, which was formerly City Hall for Norwalk from the 1800s, the 1740 Governor Fitch Law Office, and the 1826 one-room schoolhouse. Working with the Historical Society, we created all new state-of-the-art exhibits in those buildings. Each year, as part of the Norwalk school system's curriculum for local history, the Historical Society hosts over 1,000 grade school and junior high students who learn about the indigenous people's history, English settlement, African-American slavery, and the Revolutionary War history of Norwalk. I have also been working with the Historical Commission on the 1840 Smith Street Jail, Norwalk's first jail, which is located at 33 Smith Street near Hubbell's Lane, to restore that building, which ultimately will have exhibits on the history of the jail and will display the city's and the society's literally priceless collection from Norwalk's 18th and 19th century pottery industry. The exterior work has recently been completed, all through grant funding, and we are working on funding the interior restoration work. Next door to the jail at 35 Smith Street is the 1860 Public Works Barn, home to the original Department of Public Works for the city of Norwalk, that was restored in 2014 using FEMA funds after a tree fell and broke the main support beam during Hurricane Sandy. Both buildings had the street coming right up to the building, like most other buildings on Smith Street. But in the restoration work, we added public sidewalks in front of the buildings for safe pedestrian passage, along with a walkway and steps that allow pedestrians to easily get to the top of Mill Hill from Smith Street without walking up Hubbell's Lane, which also has no sidewalks. I do not want to reiterate what others have said, but I give you this background so that you can be aware of some of the uses going on around this site and what the potential impacts to Mill Hill Historical Park as an adjacent property to the O&G site could be, including increased exposure to dust from the site and emissions from the trucks exiting up on Hubbell's Lane next to Mill Hill, which cannot be good for these school kids, some of whom have asthma and other respiratory problems. It is hard to believe that no dirt and other particulates will not leave the O&G site. It is hard to believe that unloading, loading, and moving dirt and gravel around a site is considered a clean industrial use as required by the CBD zoning that applies to this site. When you Google clean industrial uses, things like computer assembly, small machine repair examples, etc., come up, not moving dirt around. 100 truck trips a day, unloading and moving dirt and gravel will create noise and worse, vibrations that over a sustained period of time could compromise the painstaking restoration work we have done on the 1840 Smith Street Jail, which is located on Smith Street very close to Hubbell's Lane, where all the heavy loaded trucks will be leaving the site. It is also hard to believe that 50 trucks per day, many during peak traffic hours, trying to turn left on Moody's Lane from East Avenue will not cause major traffic issues on East Avenue for everyone and not just those trying to reach Mill Hill. For some other concerns I have, I refer to the letter from Attorney Succi dated May 24th, 2024, which was in response to Mr. Kleppen and Mr. Baker's letter dated March 15th, 2024. Item 3, the question was from staff, and I quote, "Hero Paving has been illegally operating from the site off and on. The applicant should take concrete steps to ensure they are no longer parking vehicles and equipment there." Attorney Succi's response, quote, "O&G is aware of this issue. Hero continues to look for alternative locations and has advised the deputy zoning enforcement officer of this. No Hero oil trucks have been on the property for several years. If there are zoning violations on this property, why is this application even before the Planning and Zoning Commission at all? Why are we even here tonight? Item 4 in the same memo is a lengthy question and response regarding the lack of compliance this plan has with the requirement to provide waterfront access along the river as part of the Harbor Loop Trail, which I will not read, but you can refer to. In Attorney Suchi's response in this letter, and as she has mentioned in this proceeding, there is a deed restriction on the property that prohibits public or residential use, and that there is an existing concrete slab on the site that cannot be disturbed. I believe a boardwalk could be built over the length of the site, separating the public from the site and not allowing any disturbance, as has been done on environmentally sensitive sites all across the country for many years now. This should be fully investigated further with DEEP before abandoning plans for one of the last missing links in the Harbor Loop Trail along the river that this site is. A number of people spoke passionately about how much they use the Harbor Loop Trail, but then are forced onto Smith Street in front of this property where there are no sidewalks at all, navigating all the trucks and other vehicles to safely get to Mill Hill and the Wall Street area. I spend hours each week at different times of the day weeding and doing other maintenance at Mill Hill, and I am constantly amazed at how many pedestrians and bicyclists I see going up and down Smith Street to Mill Hill or Wall Street. Completing the Harbor Loop Trail and adding sidewalks and bike lanes to Smith Street has to happen. O&G could have made this application more attractive by adding a 5-foot sidewalk and a full landscape buffer along the entire length of the property along Smith Street, as I requested in my email that was added to the public record dated March 3rd, 2024. O&G said in these proceedings that they have a big 3-acre site, so providing the 5-foot sidewalk and landscape buffer shouldn't present any problem for them. And I'm nitpicking a bit, but I resent the notion that they aren't required to specify the vehicle parking area for their employees and visitors on the site plan. If they aren't required to specify the parking, then most likely the employees will park on the street in order to keep their cars cleaner than if they were parked in the dusty loading yard, which it will be, making it even more dangerous for cars, pedestrians, and bicyclists. If this commission approves this project as is, you should understand fully that you are guaranteeing there will be no safe pedestrian access along that portion of Smith Street, possibly for the next generation and generations to come. That is the decision you are making. My last concern, prior to 2013, the bell tower on the 1835 townhouse was covered in aluminum siding. The Historical Commission had this removed and restored back to the original historic condition in 2013. I was told that the reason the aluminum siding was put on the tower is because the commission would paint the tower, and then within a year, the tower would be yellow and discolored from the fumes generated by the asphalt plant that previously operated on the site. The applicant has been very clear that this application is only about the movement and storage of gravel and dirt and materials and not about reopening the asphalt plant. However, their statements thread the needle very finely, so to speak. I've heard several times the phrase that the applicant is, quote, looking to codify pre-existing rights, and that operating the asphalt plant is a pre-existing non-conforming use, even though it has not been used in almost 2 decades now. Reopening the asphalt plant would be a disaster for everyone in the area. O&G and their attorney have not said unequivocally that they have no plans to ever reopen the asphalt plant. They have only said that it isn't part of this application. I believe this could be a prelude to reopening the asphalt plant. Therefore, if after hearing all of the concerns of the community, the commission still wants to approve this application, I would urge you to put a condition on the approval that at least prohibits the use of the materials brought onto the site covered by this application, that they can never be used in the asphalt plant that is co-located there. But I'd rather this application be rejected in its entirety. Finally, I would like to say that in all the years of working at Mill Hill, I have never had or known of any issue with O&G and their tenant Save-A-Tree, and I do appreciate what they have done for the Norwalk River Rowing Club. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Fred, and followed by Deborah Tsitsi. Yep. Deborah is next.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am the representative of the Norwalk Conservatory of the Arts, and we are opposed to the O&G application.
I'm sorry. Can you give us your name and address, please?
Yeah. I'm Fred Feeney. I'm speaking on behalf of the college. We are located at 69 Wall Street. I am the provost of the aforementioned Norwalk Conservatory of the Arts, or NOCO for short. NOCO is a full-time arts and theatre college, and we have many buildings in the East Norwalk area, with our primary facility, as I said, being located on Wall Street. We have been running educational programs for over a decade, and after opening our full-time school last summer, we were granted accreditation by the state of Connecticut, which gives us the ability to award degrees. We are the first not-for-profit school accredited in the state for over 25 years. And myself and the team who opened the school have a track record of excellence within the industry, putting over 70 students on Broadway in the past 6 years. Over the summer, we will have over 100 young people from all over the country attend our summer programs. And every January, we run the A1 Musical Conference, which over the course of 4 days sees some 800 people come into our facilities and use the local businesses on Wall Street. The majority of these 800 stay at the Norwalk Inn. Most importantly, and pertaining to this application, we have 100 full-time students who are here year-round, who during their time with us are Norwalk residents, and they live at 102 East Ave, which, is to be clear, is the building right at the top of Moody's Lane and East Ave. I say all this not to brag, although I am very proud of what we have achieved here and the growth we are contributing to this wonderful community. No, I say this to show the seriousness in which we take the continued growth of East Norwalk. In the next few years, as our neighbor Nancy alluded to, we will have thousands of students in our area, and the safety of these young people under our tutelage is, of course, mine and the institution's utmost priority. The proposed plans to increase traffic flow, specifically down Moody's Lane, will dramatically affect our young people in 3 key areas, as described in section 118-1451 of the Site Plan Review Standards. Standard 1, the massive increase in traffic flow around an already heavily congested area will be beyond dangerous. We have 16 car park spots in our facility, and speaking from experience, the junction at 102 East Ave and Moody's Lane is already a difficult interchange. Pulling out into East Ave from Moody's Lane, as we know, is not a quick maneuver. And pulling into Moody's Lane is not only difficult due to traffic coming in the opposite direction, but in waiting for a safe time to cross into Moody's Lane, the traffic buildup behind is more often than not substantial. There is no doubt that an increase, as suggested by this application, will endanger our students' safety. Standard 2. In order to safely get to our facilities on Wall Street from 102 East Ave, our students walk down Moody's Lane, down Smith Street, as opposed to walking down East Ave, which is already a perilous journey due to the amount of traffic, the speed of that traffic, and the lack of pedestrian safety structures. Moody's Lane is a narrow, steep, unsidewalked road, and this proposed massive increase in trucks down Moody's Lane and Smith Street represent a very dangerous safety issue. We have over 100 students walking up and down these streets multiple times a day, and so a huge increase in heavy machinery and trucks will create a very dangerous situation in what should be a safe pedestrian zone where young people don't have to worry about their safety. Standard 6. This proposal will, without a doubt, see a huge increase in the amount of dust, noise, and diesel fumes, which all represent a danger to our young people. I, my team, and certainly our students' generation care deeply about the air we breathe and the water we drink, and this application will cause harm to both. We have students with respiratory issues such as asthma, and this application threatens these students even more so. This massive increase in trucks would make living in this area unbearable, and I would hope that the Commission take the living conditions of the young people in our city and our community as seriously as possible. Thank you for your time. I urge you to make the correct decision.
Thank you.
After Deborah, we have Karen Schultz and then Mike Early.
Hello, I'm Deborah Courtney Cheatsey. I live at 4 Daskams Lane, Unit 325 Riverway Condominiums, and I'm going to make this rather personal. My husband Larry and I have retired to 325 Riverway in 2019, just at the start of COVID, but we found a safe place to be. It took us 2 years of looking all throughout the community to be close to our children and our grandchildren in Westport, and we found Riverway. Before this, we lived in a beautiful post and beam cottage in the Hudson Valley, just outside of West Point, New York, and it was hard to find something comparable to the beauty and the peace and the quiet of that mountain abode, but we found it at Riverway. I'm speaking tonight so you can put a face, this old face, to a place and feel somewhat what I feel about being forced into a situation that's less than operable. My husband is an Army veteran. He served at West Point for 5 years in the United States Military Band. He paid his dues. While it might have seemed like an easy way to get out of number 13 draft number for Vietnam, he wanted to come out of that horrible time with his fingers, and he did. But while he was playing for many cadets' graduations, he also had his heart broken many times because he played for the funerals when they came home in caskets covered with flags. He paid his dues also to the country and continued in civil service for another 35 years after that. I feel I also paid my dues to society. I'm a professional educator. I taught kindergarten the best, second grade better, and finally ended up retiring from Rockland Community College as the chair of the teacher education early childhood program there. I think that we deserve a safe, beautiful place to retire in what might be the last decade of our lives. Please don't force us to smell the air and to fight the traffic and to watch the compromise on the river. O&G is not a good neighbor. Come look at the monolithic rusting structure that they have allowed us to walk by for years and years. We deserve to continue to enjoy our abode and our safety and our beauty. And I'm hoping that you're sensitive to not only my face, but the many here who live in the condos all along the river. And I also have to say, I'm very excited to be part of Democracy in Action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Karen Schultz. I also live on Dascom's Lane. And my story too is my personal story of what I experienced where I am right now. John has told you before I came on, we moved here 4.5 years ago because of our grandchildren. And so here we are. Here we find ourselves in lovely Norwalk. I want to tell you, in 4.5 years, I would have to tell you, I have walked Smith Street probably 4 days out of every week since I've been here, maybe 5 days, maybe only 3, but I walk Smith Street frequently. And so frequently that the few truck drivers we have now, they wave at me and I wave at them. And we have a nice compatible relationship going on there. But I walk Smith Street because I can go to the library. I can go to the coffee shop. I can go to the post office. And besides that, it keeps me healthy and keeps my weight down. So what I'm asking of you is to consider, now I represent a lot of people who walk on Smith Street. They walk by my condo. I've even met a lady who lives over on West Avenue and she walks over and we become, I call them my patio friends because I talk to them below the patio. Anyway, you have a decision to make. I wish you the best. I agree with everything that has been said here for the last 2 meetings. And the only thing I can request of you is if you think you have to agree with ONG and do this, could you please get us a really decent walking path, please? Thank you, and the best of luck, guys.
Thank you.
After Mike is David Wendt and Anthony Pizzone.
Hi, I'm Mike Curley, 4 Dascom Lane. And everyone's been so eloquent. I just, I'm a John Doe just throwing out things. We came in 2005. We've been here, my wife and I, we're both 80 plus for 20 years. I know Moody Lane very well, and I close my eyes and see there's no stop signs or anything on Moody, so traffic just has to stop if a truck is going to go down. It's two-way traffic. It's at Hubble there's a fighting chance because there's a light, but Moody is every man for himself. They have to have the traffic department look at that if they're going to have trucks going down there. I don't know, you guys sit here, I don't even know if you have a sense of the traffic dilemma that Moody presents for commercial and residential traffic if this goes through. The other thing, just off the top of my head, since 2005, when we came, all along the waterfront has become residential. I remember the lawyer saying last week that it's a commercial recreational zone. The last 20 years, the residential has become the equal to the commercial area. Someone told me that and it's 160 plus families in 5 or 6 buildings along the waterfront. That ONG pays 100,000. We pay $1.2 million in taxes. I don't know what other little statistics I can think of. It's just a daunting situation, and we wish you the wisdom of Solomon.
Thank you.
David Wendt. Could be. It's 85 Cummings Ave, is that? Okay.
If anyone else would like to speak, please, there's a sign up sheet right here.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name's David Word. I'm from 58 Cummings Avenue in Fairfield. However, I was a Norwalk resident for 27 years. I'm representing the Norwalk Boat Club. I recently had gotten word about what could possibly be going on here, and I just want to let you know that it would probably shut us down. We're a 112-year-old organization. I'm an avid boater. I have 2 boats on the docks there. I'd have to find a new club. I think this is a big mistake. So one of the other things that kind of really does bother me, and other people have mentioned it, is that just the fact of the matter of the condition of the existing location that they want to reopen is just in shambles. And one thing I did notice 2 days ago on the water is there's osprey have actually nested on the buildings. And if you think this group's tough, wait till you talk to some of the conservations people behind the wildlife. But what I'm getting at is this is a personal matter for me, my kids, and I just wanted to say that I totally oppose this. It's a difficult situation for us to get through the way it is, but it would be very dangerous. And I just want to thank you very much for letting me speak. Okay.
Thank you.
Anthony Pizzone, and then Attorney Heisler, if you wanted to, you can just sign in the sheet, and then and after Anthony is Baba Bartek. Yeah, you'll be coming up.
Hello, my name is Anthony Fasone, and I live at 4 Dascom's Lane. A little fact, ONG revenues last year were a record of $360 million, a third of $1 billion. In the larger scheme of things, I think it's fair to say that ONG's business will just be fine if they don't pursue the aggregate business on Smith Street. On the other hand, condo owners, homeowners, property owners in the area, and in what is now a very thriving neighborhood, will undoubtedly see the value of their properties decline as the quality of life in the area deteriorates. ONG and their representatives have glossed over some very serious issues. There's common sense. Common sense dictates that large, noisy, tri-axle diesel trucks coming and going on a daily basis will wreak havoc environmentally. Traffic locally will be horrendous. Large amounts of noxious exhaust from the trucks, and of course, safety issues for motorists, pedestrians, and are just a few of the consequences. I, as others that live here, as a matter of fact, John Schultz mentioned that he has multiple myeloma, as I do, for more than a decade. And I have had a kidney transplant, and we are severely immunocompromised. If this proposal comes to fruition, my life activities in the area would be severely curtailed, as would be for others. Anecdotally, I had a chat recently with a heavy equipment operator that worked the site in 207 and 208. And when I mentioned the ONG situation to him in the very brief conversation he had, he says, boy, I remember back in 07 and 08, what Moody's Lane was like then. Trucks were backed up forever. That was his comment. Please do not allow us do not allow ONG to victimize our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next up is Erica Foster Sentu, followed by Isabel Lopez.
Honorable Chair and respected members of the Commission. I am Vaibhav Vartak, the resident of Riverway at 4 Dascom's Lane. I'm a father of 2 kids, a 3-year-old daughter and a newborn of 10 days. I'd like to bring a very serious health hazard that my family and other families in the area and the neighborhood will expose to if the permission is granted to ONG to continue and further expand the current operations on site. There have been several findings, and my research have been officially sent via email, and the links have been shared as well. The 2 reports that I would like to state here were published on the government official website. The first study is done and published in American Journal of Respiratory and Critical Care Medicine. As per the statistics, and this study was done over 8 million kids from age 2 to 10 specifically, and the report claims, quote, asthma affects more than 7 million US children and is responsible for more than 3,000 deaths and 400,000 hospitalizations and 1.8 emergency department visits per year in the United States. Now, in the research world, air pollution is regarded as particulate matter, PM. And the report further claims, which is very important for everybody to hear here, listen to, children exposed to outdoor coarse particulate matter, PM10 to 2.5, were more likely to develop asthma and need emergency room or hospital treatment for it. Coarse particulate matter can come from roadway particles such as brake and tire wear and mixtures of road dust and metals. This directly concerns the issue at hand. The second study that has been published and conducted by the National Library of Medicine, it claims, quote, PM10 exposure during the first year of life was associated with a reduction in FEV1, and the PM10 near home was associated with the increased risk of asthma-related hospitalizations. Similarly, long-term PM 2.5 exposure was associated with the severe asthma exacerbations and positively correlated with number of wheezing episodes in children 2 to 10 years of age. These two research studies were published on government official site. And with this background and the research stated here helps understand the potential health risk our children are exposed to and how it will obviously further escalate the air quality in the neighborhood if ONG is given permission to continue and further expand their operations. I sincerely request the Honorable Chair and the Commission to carefully review the potential health risks to our children and elderly. Thank you for hearing our concerns, and we look forward to hearing the help that our kids deserve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Erica Foster Centeo, 3 Lewis Street, which is the address of the First Congregational Church on the Norwalk Green. I am the Social Justice Minister for the Yordan Social Justice Institute. First Congregational Church of Norwalk has anchored the historic Norwalk Green since 1652. For 372 years, we have served as a civic, political, and social gathering place and hub for community engagement and conversation. We deeply value, especially the historic nature of the Norwalk Green and the surrounding neighborhood. We take very seriously our role in speaking out for the significant number of residents, businesses, and organizations that make up this district, and for the role this district plays in the life of the city of Norwalk. We therefore wish to voice our significant concern about the proposed operational change by ONG Industries. According to their own traffic impact study dated May 15 of 2024, ONG anticipates moving some 12,000 tons per month from March to December, or 800 truckloads a month, equal to 40 trucks per day and 5 truckloads an hour. These trucks will leave the Waterside facility and drive through our various neighborhoods, streets, and highways. And while ONG's analysis indicates that little impact on the volume of traffic, it is impossible for us to believe there will be little impact on the quality of traffic in and around the Norwalk Green, given the overwhelming noise and pollution generated by a steady stream of dump trucks. The addition of these trucks each day on roads moving around and through the Norwalk Green will drastically change the nature of the green, visually and audibly. We also wish to speak to the use of the river itself and join the numerous boating and rowing clubs in expressing our grave concern that the increased barge traffic will detract from the use of the river in ways that benefit the social, physical, and mental health of the community. The 10 to 12 additional barges per month effectively crowd out others who are using the Norwalk River for other purposes. Finally, we have grave concerns regarding the environmental impact on the river and the roads of this radical increase in boat and road traffic, with increased emissions, which will negatively impact air quality. The additional wear and tear on roads not designed to support this volume of traffic, specifically trucks, not to mention the increased noise pollution involved with unloading materials like stone and loading them onto and then transporting them using heavy machinery and large trucks, will negatively impact our neighborhood and our community. As a house of worship with a counseling center, Elder House, which is an adult daycare center, and a preschool on our campus with programs and activities 7 days per week, we are also concerned about pedestrian traffic and safety. We join groups like the Norwalk Land Trust, Maritime Rowing Club, Norwalk Boat Club, Connecticut Boat Club, and residents around the Norwalk Green in expressing our concern about the plan as it has been presented to date. Respectfully, Reverend Tamara Moreland of the First Congregational Church of Norwalk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
After Isabel is Diane Loricella.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Maria Lopez. I live at 6 Hendricks Avenue for about 35 years with my husband and my 2 sons. I want to add to my 6-page letter that I think this application does not satisfy 2 zoning regulations. The first is section 118-5048 of the Central Business District and section 118-1451C of the State Plan Review. Under section 118-5048, the application does not provide any economic evidence to prove that they add value to having of the Hendricks Avenue, East Avenue, and Norwalk. Also, it's very clear that you can see that more homes give the city more taxes than the industrial plants. Luis Miguel, es que no veo. Okay. I'm sorry. Under section 118-1451C of the State Plan Review, the tribunal does not have any good statistics for the operation and ITE land use category number 30 has a very small sample size. This is very weak evidence. It is statistically likely that the application will only increase the traffic danger that every day I have to face with my husband. All the weak evidence provides proves that the benefit is only for the big company, and the hard part is for me, my husband, and all neighborhoods of East Avenue. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
After Diane is Jack Myers.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Diane Loricella. I live at 21 Little Fox Lane. I wanted to open up by saying thank you for extending this public hearing, and thank you for your service, and including the staff. I also wanted to thank ONG because of this particular application, a wonderful group of people have come together for a purpose to assist in preserving our health, our safety. There have been other applications that aren't very wise in Norwalk, but this one means a lot to me and many others in this particular neighborhood, the neighborhood associations, the churches, the groups, the environmental groups, the neighbors, the businesses, including the Wall Street Neighborhood Association, the Norwalk Green Association, and the City Hall Neighborhood Association. Tonight, I have some prepared statements that I pared down as people have been speaking. I agree with everyone here that is opposed to this unwise application. I was hoping by now that, as has happened before, that ONG would have withdrawn their application, realizing the mistakes in trying to not only expand a use, but reactivate and keep open the door to trying to reactivate their asphalt plant. I will be handing in some background information. Unfortunately, my printer broke, so I only have 4 copies, but I will give them to the staff when I'm done. Actually, I'll give them to the staff and you can share them as I'm speaking. Maybe that would be better. Right. I find my main effort here tonight was to tell you that I've been doing some file research. I do it for my livelihood. I've been doing it ever since I came to Norwalk, working for the first tax and district water company and then for the Department of Environmental Protection. My job was to hunt down polluters. And I still do it to this day in different forms. But I feel I must tell you before I begin, and part of my handout to you includes my resume, because unfortunately my reputation had been questioned by the applicant's attorney, and I feel I have to rehabilitate myself because that attorney under the recently previous application stated that Diane Lauricella, she's always finding fault or always saying something's missing in applications. Well, I come here tonight to tell you, yeah, that is the problem here, is that there is a lot missing in this application. I am the former and founding president of the Norwalk River Watershed Association. I was the first Harbor Management Commission member. I am telling you this because I don't want you to think I just hop on any particular application and just say a few words because I enjoy it. I want to help impart things that I found that are missing in this application. I also am the past chair of the Sierra Club Fairfield County Group and past president of the League of Women Voters. Each of these groups have an honored position in our town as well as our nation in the case of the Sierra Club. We do our homework. We don't want to waste your time on things that we make up. So in my efforts to find files, I saw a pattern emerging. So, and it is after my resume and my community resume, you'll see that in the files of the City Hall at Planning and Zoning, I also went to the Code Enforcement and I went to the Health Department, the Fire Department, and looked at police records online. I found very little about ONG's past, especially when it was an asphalt plant. Now that speaks to many things, including maybe Norwalk needs to get its act together on making it easier for people to file complaints, but I digress. In my packet, under Friday, March 22nd, there is a memo from Ms. Suchi to Mr. Kleppen stating that there's a meeting on April 2nd at 9 a.m., which is fine. It's fine for a development community to meet with staff. The thing is, I don't know as the public as to what was discussed, who was at the meeting, and there are no notes in the file. And that is quite unusual. When I worked for the Department of Environmental Protection and we met with companies, businesses, cities and town officials, we would at least have some memo in the file stating who we met with, basically what was said and what was the conclusion. But this is just one example of many where there are meetings with this applicant, with the staff, and I'll tell you why I'm mentioning this to you. I have been around for over 40 years. I believe in the word activism. It's not a dirty word. So on occasion, I have spoken out on applications I like and applications I do not, or I don't feel are a good idea. And often, I also speak on applications where I'd like them to tweak it, improve it, make it more user-friendly with the city. So this email, I have this memo that I found in the file that was not scanned in, speaks to one of several meetings with the staff where there's no record that I could find as a citizen. And I did file a Freedom of Information request, but really it was never answered. So the next, on March 6th, There's an email in the file. Again, it wasn't scanned in for the public. I'm not, it's hard to scan in everything that comes in, so I'm not implying anything. But the thing is, it states, Mr. Kleppen asks of Ms. Suchi's staff, can you forward me the ONG traffic study? Now that's March 6th, and I was scratching my head because I know that it was stated that the application in full was handed in before February 19th. Now I have to put this into the record administratively, just in case there's an appeal by somebody who is opposed. Because if that is correct, that means that the application was accepted and it was incomplete. So this commission and the staff had every right to reject the application. Why is this important? Especially to the folks behind me, you already know this, because if it was rejected, then the applicant, should they have wanted to go forward still with their application, they would have had to have filed under special permit, which gives you, the commissioners, a lot more discretion, and they, the applicant, has to do a lot more work to convince you. So I think that needs to be up as well. The last thing about the administrative part of this. It has been said before by Mr. Westmoreland, and I think others after me will talk about it. It states clearly in the site review standards, I think it's number 7, there shall be no violations on the property. In the files I looked at, as well as the staff's comments during the beginning of this proceeding, it was acknowledged that there are violations, at least one big violation, which is a company operating on the property improperly. I'm a former senior investigator with the DEEP. To me, that sounds like a violation. So I think that, again, this never should have been put into the accepted by you all. Now, that's either miscommunication with the staff or something, you know, I don't know why this was even ever, why we're here under site plan review. Of course, site plan review standards haven't been met here. I'm not going to repeat what others have said about stable traffic flow, about not impeding pedestrians and cars, and by extension cyclists, and not causing an impact of things like dust, noise, and the like. You've heard from people. I agree with them wholeheartedly. I'm going to talk about a little bit shortly about the environmental side of the application. The applicant's environmental report by Landtech, a company that I've worked with before professionally, is 1 page. And in it, and you have this in front of you, they say everything is hunky-dory. No problem. Well, that is false. And the reason I'm mentioning it and saying it this way to you is that you not only will you be reminded by Ms. Suchi representing ONG when she rebuts, she reminded you when she opened up the application, which is her right. She reminded you about what you can vote on. So indeed, site plan review standards give you a little less, that gives you less discretion, except for this point. You have the discretion whether you believe what the applicant wrote on the forms is true. And it's our job, and it was really your job through your peer reviews, to make sure that you are being given facts, not misinformation, not sleight of hand. I'm here today to say you've been given some sleight of hand, at least in the environmental report. And I read a lot of environmental reports. I'm here today as a fact witness about looking at files. So next, we're going to go into environmental side of the application. You've heard from a lot of people about PM10, PM 2.5. I agree with everything that's been said. I'm not here to tell you I am a health professional. So I've handed in to you what very prestigious groups like CDC, Moms Clean Air Force, which is a great group of female feisty broads that have put together a not-for-profit and help keep families and children safe in school and at home. You also have in front of you an EPA particle pollution and your health. It talks about what is particulate matter. What is the difference between PM10, which stands for particulate matter 10, and particulate matter 2.5? The reason I felt I had to hand this in today and take time now is because your peer review environmental company, AKRF, didn't do you much of a favor. They handed in a one-page report as well. Now in it, they did point out some things that you should look into, but you're layman. It would have been good and well for AKRF to tell you what PM10 means instead of actually asking the applicant to tell you. I would think your peer review company would be better because hopefully they would give you the facts. And so I ask you, next time you hire an environmental peer review company, make sure they're answering the right questions and give you enough information upon which you can make a good decision, hopefully a denial. But on the second page of the, I just wanted to show you about PM10 and a comparison. People here can't see it, but I will make it available online. A human hair is 50 to 70 micrometers, and then we talk about less than 10 for PM10 and less than 2.5 width for tiny fine particles. So it just goes to talk again about what kinds of harmful effects can particulate matter cause. I just want to say, I'm not going to read this, but we have a lot of retirees who's wanted to downsize. They moved into the many apartments and condos that you and your predecessors approved in that area of the river over the last 10 to 15 years. Because they're seniors, their lungs don't operate as well. We have children there too, and their lungs are not formed yet well. And then we have, as you've heard from people, immunocompromised people. So that is something you have to take, especially when you have an applicant that would dare tell you nothing to see here. There's no problem with, we're going to capture all the particle dust when we transfer materials and when our trucks go up and down the street. I'm moving on. Silicosis. The reason why silicosis should have been mentioned by your own peer review company, and hopefully will be mentioned later, is because silica dust is a thing when you're talking about sand, especially when it's ground and rubbed, when it's moved around. Silica in and of itself is a human carcinogen. So the thing is, unfortunately, at times our government gets lobbied in Washington and you don't hear much about important stuff like silica. It can cause silicosis. There are symptoms. It can harm people. Read what I put into the record. Lastly, before I move on to what a good neighbor this applicant is, I want to give you, you have in your packets what diesel pollution does, how it affects your health, and what you can do about it. Basically, diesel is pollution that comes from combustion of diesel fuel in heavy-duty machinery, trucks, buses, trains, ships, and some cars. Diesel generators and construction equipment can also be important sources of diesel exhaust. Now, the thing is, we're not only going to get diesel exhaust fumes from the operating equipment on the property that you've already been told about by the applicant, but also dozens and dozens of trucks, not all being maintained by the applicant. There's going to be people from all walks of life. Some trucks are in good shape, some are not. So keep that in mind as well. And this tells you what you should know about that. Then we're moving on to the issue, and this is my final issue, is what, and I just was given a letter to read in. I'm not going to read it into the record completely, but it is from Dr. Beverly Shears, a Norwalk resident in the area of this application, an associate professor of the Yale School of Medicine, pediatric pulmonary medicine. She couldn't be here tonight. You might want to talk with her another time about other such projects and problems in Norwalk. She just says, and I'm going to hand this in a moment, traffic from vehicles produce diesel particles called particulate matter. 2.5 microns that are of sufficient size to get into the airways of people and is known to cause respiratory disease. children are not small adults and they need extra protection. Pound for pound, children breathe more air and drink more water than adults. A baby breathes 2 to 3 times faster than an adult. In the first 8 to 10 years of life, the lungs undergo rapid growth and development. Air pollution damages the new lung and can set children up for lifelong respiratory problems. Now, in this area, it is close to Hartford, to Norwalk Hospital, but let's not give them more business when you don't need it. So I'll hand this into the record as well. Last thing I'm going to speak about is what a good neighbor you've been told that ONG is. One of the things I did in my quest for finding out information is I went to Stamford, Bridgeport, I went up to Hartford, DEEP. I did some homework about their Danbury site, and they have a quarry in Southbury. I want to focus mostly on Stamford because that is where there were, in just the last couple of years, well, over 25, there's quite frankly 33 air quality complaints from the public about their 2 sites in Stamford. One on Canal Street, 686 Canal Street, which is an asphalt plant, but they also have materials management. And you'll see in my packet a picture where there is a huge pile of sand. There's no water being sprayed on it, and it is uncovered. And there are people that live in the area. It is not just Fairway Supermarket that's been abandoned. There are people that actually live near Canal Street still, and also live across the canal because that city has additional people living there. Again, unfortunately, cities do expand. So in your packet, I have something from Lydia Ruchiter from Harbor Drive, and she has, I called her husband Sean because his name was in a 2010 a complaint to the Air Quality Division, and the records are up in Hartford, and I have some for you there. I called them and I said, hey, are things better? They told me that things are worse than ever with the asphalt plant, that they still have to close their windows and they breathe the smell of an asphalt plant, and they see black smoke coming out of the asphalt plants. Now, of course, you're going to be told nothing to see here. This application isn't about the asphalt plant, but I want to tell you, and I want you to think about this. This couple, great couple, has been complaining about this, and for a while they gave up. I said, I didn't see any more of your complaints in the files. And they said, we gave up because we kept trying. In fact, Representative David Michelle had a meeting with ONG and the air quality people. And the thing is, unfortunately, air quality calls the company, unlike the hazardous waste division when I was there, we never called people in advance. They have a practice where they will usually call the company, not always, before they come down for Hartford. So what is happening is there are a lot of complaints, but then when I read the inspection report, it said, nothing to see here. We didn't see any emissions because it took them an hour and a half or 2 to get down to Stamford. And if they called the company in advance, guess what? Water starts spraying the grounds. So this is typically what happens. So we have Lydia and her husband Sean told me that the same problems are happening today, and the 686 Canal Street location has sand and other materials that are causing problems. They're having odor problems from the asphalt plant. They are not good neighbors. Okay, you may say, well, Diane, that's just an asphalt plant. You see a picture, I call it Exhibit 8, where at Canal Street, you see a huge pile, it looks like the pyramids, a huge pile of sand to the left of a white covered pile, or it might be a salt pile. I don't know what's behind it. That's not being a good neighbor, because as soon as the wind blows, it will blow towards, if the wind is blowing westerly, it's going to hit the neighborhood. The next picture I have is their other site at 71-72 Davenport Street near Greenwich Avenue. Now, again, I do feel, I like industry. I like when industry are good neighbors and are clean as possible. Nothing is perfect. But if any of you have ever been to Harbor Point, you look across the canal that ONG uses to barge their materials, which is perfectly okay as long as the stuff isn't blowing around. You will see their bins, the kind of bins they proposed here for material storage in that picture. And none of these piles are covered. Now, some of them I'm sure are wetted down. I didn't see that when I was there doing my reconnaissance. The next picture shows, this was taken from a household driveway looking east towards the piles, a huge pile. I've never seen such a large pile of sand, uncovered and not wetted, on the Davenport facility of ONG's material management and concrete plant. And I posit a guess that when the wind blows, it hits, I didn't get in my photo a child's bicycle, but there were signs of children there. The rest of the packet just has a series of complaints from the public. There are in the back 33 listed. I lastly there are photos, there are signs of NOVs, notices of violation. One of the last ones was 18436. You have it in your packet. The problem right now with the way the air quality people operate is all they give out are notices of violation, pretty much. Rarely do they have consent orders. So that doesn't seem to be working because this particular owner, while I know that they do give money to charities and they are a family business, they're a business we need for many things in our society. They don't have the right to be grandfathered to pollute and hurt people's health. They just don't. And they're not showing it from roughly 2010 to 2024. They have violations in the 2 locations they mainly operate. And I showed you pictures of visible emissions coming off their piles. That is a violation. And I showed you also a map in Stamford. The health department has had a lot of turnover in their health directors, and I had filed an FOI. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it filled before today. So I have our own health department. There were hardly any files at all about ONG. I welcome anyone in this audience. If you smell anything from anybody, call the health department or the fire department. File, make sure they do their job in keeping you safe. And lastly, I want to just say this, as far as being a good neighbor. There was a petition to clean up sidewalks and streets on Greenwich Avenue and nearby Davenport Street, which is where the applicant has their main and very impressive materials management and concrete facility they manufacture. And I know they're not going to manufacture concrete on the site. I asked them, my knowledge, what I do know about concrete making is they do use fly ash. Will fly ash also be used in the barges? Because that stuff is really toxic, especially when it gets wet or it blows around and gets in your lungs and meets a moist lung. And nobody's mentioning fly ash or anything other than sand and gravel. In fact, I think it was Mr. Warren that said, and others said, nothing to see here, people. This stuff is natural. Well, unfortunately, I hope someone after me will talk about what else is included in sand. Yes, it's sand coming from the earth, but it contains contaminants that we cannot respire. This is from, I want to leave you with this, the petition from members. There were like 80 members that signed. I just gave you the front page. We, the tenants and residents of the above stated addresses, hereby seek remedy of the polluted air, sidewalks, and streets. We have requested this through various agencies, federal, state, and city, numerous times, and as of yet, we have had no relief. The air is so dirty from the sand and dirt that we can no longer keep our windows open, sit outside on our properties, nor can we breathe without assistance of inhalers or oxygen. Our vehicles have had to be washed several times a week because sand and soot builds up on our vehicles so bad we cannot see out of our windows. Our air conditioners have had to be run 12 hours or more a day just because we can't open our windows, so we're paying for it. The dirt builds up on the windowsills of our residences. A survey revealed that 75% of the tenants and residences in this area have some type of respiratory aids. This is unacceptable to us. We have lost 2 of our residents due to death of respiratory illnesses or breast cancer. The long-term residents are having a hard time breathing on their own. Most are seniors. Economically, we can't afford the increase in our utility bills, the cost of medicines, and the cost of washing our cars. We, the tenants and residents of the above stated, address demand relief of 2 kinds. We want air quality testing, and we want to make sure the air is safe for breathing. And then they sent this to the DEP, the state, and the city council, and they were all living around the applicant's site. That doesn't appear to me to be a good neighbor. Lastly, I want to say that while there are 2 regulations that you have the right to review, site plan review and coastal area management review, so you have, where you do have a lot of discretion, the city has also committed, as the mayor and the council, they voted on the POCD, Plan of Conservation and Development. Under the environmental chapter, this application is in violation of our hopes and dreams. It's just a vision statement, but it's in opposition. The Wall Street Master Plan, in opposition. The TMP current phase 1, 2, and 3, opposition. The Norwalk River Valley Initiative, Norwalk River Watershed Initiative, of which I, as the former president, participate in to this day, in opposition. And lastly, Complete Streets, in opposition. With that, I thank you for listening to me. I had to get this stuff into the record because I'm not sure anyone else would. Certainly your own peer review people did not. Thank you. And lastly, here's a map that will help you figure out how close everybody is, because some of you may not know where Mill Hill is, Riverway condos, the landings, the River Rowing Association, et cetera. It's important that you see these visuals. Thank you.
There's 4 signed up and 1 online.
Let's keep going.
Thank you, commissioners, for extending this hearing and patiently listening to us. My name is Jack Myers. I live at 3 Union Park, and I am an organizing member of Sustainable Streets Norwalk, a local group that advocates for walking, biking, public transit, and better land use in Norwalk. The original traffic study accompanying O&G Industries site plan at 77 through 55 Smith Street did not include consideration for impact on pedestrians and cyclists. This was a mistake. The applicant should not only account for the current pedestrian use of the roads, as the standards for site plan review require that their generated traffic not adversely affect both pedestrian and vehicular safety, but they should also expect more active transport on Smith Street in the future. Active transport is growing in popularity primarily among young people who are more likely to live near and frequent dense areas of the city, like Wall Street and Washington Street. The multi-phase Wall Street revitalization project from Traffic Mobility and Parking has $18.5 million allocated to it already, emphasizes pedestrian and cyclist traffic, as well as establishes Wall Street as a connection between the Norwalk River Valley Trail and the proposed Harbor Loop Trail. The Wall Street neighborhood, which connects to Smith Street, has grown in population and popularity with Norwalkers due to redevelopment and increased economic activity. Norwalk TMP is also working on a complete streets design guide that will place greater emphasis on pedestrian and cycling infrastructure, and which will invite Norwalkers to walk and bike more by providing safer infrastructure. My concern is that the use of the site as proposed in the plan will actively detract from the city's vision of safe infrastructure and devalue the projects that Norwalk has already invested in to improve this part of the city. Transportation projects depend on forming a strong network, and one unsafe road section can easily nullify the benefits of adjacent paths because people won't use infrastructure that they don't trust to keep them safe. It is my understanding that the applicant's site plan is required by the review standards not to interfere with adjacent development, and in the case of the Harbor Loop Trail, I think maintaining the same level of safe access for its intended users is impossible without additional amendments to the plan. Given the location of the site, the Norwalk Harbor Loop Trail will have to share Smith Street with O&G traffic. Currently, Smith Street and the pieces of the Harbor Loop Trail that have already been built represent the only safe alternative to East Avenue, which is one of Norwalk's most hostile and dangerous roads for pedestrians and cyclists. Despite this, Smith Street, Moody's Lane, and Hubble Lane do not have sidewalks or shoulders and force pedestrian and vehicular traffic to mix in tight quarters. Unquestionably, this site plan will introduce regular, direct traffic conflicts between trucks and active transit users, impacting their safety. I would strongly urge the commission to further limit the truck traffic allowed on Smith Street and to require that the applicant provide an easement to add a 10-foot wide separated path to Smith Street to eliminate conflicts between turning trucks and pedestrians and cyclists, if not reject the site plan entirely. I would also like to call on the city to further address pedestrian safety, enforcement of traffic laws, and to redesign the intersections on East Avenue.
Thank you.
Yosef? Next up would be Larry Goichman and then Abram, Attorney Heisler.
My name is Larry Goichman, and I own the warehouse at 61 Smith Street. Everything I see about this application says it is better and easier to say I'm sorry than to ask permission. For example, I was never notified by O&G of their plans along the river. I repeat, O&G never notified me. There have been conversations by me with the architectural firm of Jones, Byrne, Margolis, specifically with Cormac Byrne, about raising the warehouse and building apartments. There's no such thing as a clean cement plant or a clean asphalt plant. There are carcinogens aplenty. In addition, there'll be trucks, big ones. Please explain how a fire engine can get by a cement truck in a hurry. We need housing. Norwalk needs apartments. It does not need a carcinogen delivery system. Trucks will be loaded earlier than the posted hours, and they will stay open longer than posted hours. By Norwalk not stopping the further industrialization of this part of Norwalk, the message is clear. Norwalk cares more about a cement or asphalt plant than its residents. The current zoning of CBDC makes apartments a permissible use. An asphalt plant or cement plant predates zoning as we know it. An asphalt or cement plant are both legally non-conforming. There's no reason to allow a use which will negatively impact all apartment developments in the area with cement dust or hydrocarbon smells that will stop in its tracks the gentrification of Smith Street. Use of barges to transport these carcinogens will further impact and pollute the water. Effluent seeping or dropping into the water will impact and pollute not only the water in the Norwalk River, but the entire Long Island Sound. Current state of the lobster industry in Long Island Sound is on life support. Adding droppings from an asphalt or cement plant will not help fishing, boating, or lobsters. I urge you to vote no. I will give serious thought to not building the apartments at 61 Smith Street if Norwalk lays silent. Thank you.
Thank you. Did I skip Yosef? Did I skip Yosef? He left. Okay, then I missed Joseph. Attorney Heisler? I think one is with the other, yeah, and then we'll get Patricia next.
Good evening. My name is Abram Heisler. I'm here as the attorney for the Norwalk Boat Club and also as a 36-year resident of Norwalk and somebody that's worked in the Wall Street area for the last 31 years on a daily basis and a personal basis as well. Members of the Boat Club have already spoken about the impact that this project will have on the continued viability of the Boat Club and their ability to continue to exist as a community organization with over 100 members that's been around for well over 100 years. I'm submitting 2 photographs here, one of which is a satellite image taken in 2008 when O&G was docking barges there, showing the the impact on the river and navigation when when Divine and ONG are both docking barges at the same time. I apologize, I just received this, so it's not scanned in, but I will leave this with the commission. The other two photographs are showing how far, based on the tides, the barges swing into the channel at high tide. And you could see from looking at this, these are showing the barges that are currently in the Divine Park at Divine. This was on Memorial Day, the impact on it. I want to reiterate that even with barges just at Divine Brothers or just at ONG, it would be difficult for fire and police vessels to access that part of the river going up to the Wall Street Bridge. If in the past there was suicide attempts, there were people jumping off the bridge for whatever reason, and God forbid there was a fire in that area, it would be difficult or impossible for fire boats to access. During this presentation, I've heard reference to the fact that ONG was aware of their tenant Puro Paving operating in violation of zoning laws at that property. And I think the implication was that they were concerned about it. So I looked up the judicial records and I see no attempt to evict Puro Paving from that property. And these are big corporations, and I could only imagine that the reason was that Puro Paving was paying a substantial rent to be there, and ONG felt no reason to block it. But I also did see that ONG sued the city of Norwalk in 2018, saying that they were being overassessed for that property. And that case dragged on for several years, and I'm sure it cost the city of Norwalk tens of thousands of dollars to defend that case in the court. So I want to just reiterate what everybody else has said. I've had an office on Wall Street, Belden Avenue, and now River Street since 1994. And I've lived in the area since 1988, and it is very congested. On Tuesday, I don't usually drive in that area, but on Tuesday, I had to drive on the highway, and getting from the Green to I-95 at exit 16 took me 22 minutes. There was no accident, nothing else going on. Twice a month, I bike down East Avenue to get to the East Norwalk train station. And I usually have to bike on the sidewalk, which is incredibly dangerous both to myself and to pedestrians on the sidewalk because there's just so much traffic there. So if you're putting in a situation, and cars are zipping in and out because they don't want to be patient and wait in the right lane to get onto the highway, so they go into the left lane and try to zip in and out. Adding 10 to 20 dump trucks to that equation, particularly between 8 and 9, which is the busiest time in that stretch of road, would have an incredibly deleterious impact. So I want to again reiterate what everybody else said. This is a project that should not happen, and the impact both on all the stakeholders there would be horrible. So I'm asking you on behalf as an individual in Norwalk, and on behalf of the boat club, to reject this application.
Thank you.
Patricia, you'll get unmuted in just a second, and then you can.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
You are.
Okay. I guess I could, I don't know if I can put a visual on or not, but
Can we have your name and address, please?
Certainly. I'm Patricia Agudo. I live at 212 Richards Avenue in Norwalk, Connecticut. I am a 44-year resident of Norwalk, and I was an original owner at Riverway condominiums when they were being built. And this is a qualitative statement. It's not a quantitative one. I'm really trying to show some solidarity here with a river that I came to love, living right on it, and with all of my fellow neighbors that I still have friends that live at Riverway, and I know what they're dealing with at the moment. when I signed my contracts for Riverway condominiums to be one of the first residents, I'm looking around. It was pretty polluted then, but I was taking a leap of faith that I could listen to the builder and in my city that said within 10 years, we would have the Norwalk River Valley, there'd be rowing clubs, the water quality would be cleaned up, and wildlife and birds and the fish could come back into the river. And many a time they were floating dead on the river. But that was a time when barges were actively coming up the river, and 2 to 3 a week would come up. And it was quite an ordeal to see that. Never mind, I don't really think it's going to be 8 a month. It's probably would expand from there, but that's just my opinion. I agree with everything everybody has said in opposition to this request by ONG, because I've seen the kind of neighbor they have been. I watched the Norwalk River get dredged for 24 hours a day for many, many weeks into months, some years ago, almost 20 years ago when I lived there. And it's a beautiful area now, and it will be just a sacrilege to see these people come in with the intent to bring it back in time, thinking Norwalk's still an industrial city, when our mission and our vision statements state we want to be sustainable, we want to be a green city, we want our people to have complete streets and be able to utilize what Norwalk has to offer for its residents. This goes completely against that. Thank you very much. And I certainly hope that there will be a no vote for this request from ONG. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it? Does the intervener wish to speak at this point?
There's nobody else signed up. Do you want to take a break at this point? And then have the intervener go within 3 hours?
Yeah, that's fine. It's 8:36. Let's get yeah, I think let's get back together at 8:50. Okay. Okay. It's my understanding that every member of the public who has wished to speak has spoken.
I think Mr. Descal is gonna. Did you speak last time?
Then please.
My name is Tina Jordan. I am a condo owner at Riverway. I did send a couple of notes of opposition. They were quite emotive, and I'm going to apologize to all of you for the emotive opposition that I sent. But I did want to just add a couple of things that amplify what's already been said. I am one of those pedestrians who tries to use East Avenue to get to the East Norwalk train station. I did send you all pictures of what East Avenue looked like at 7:40 a.m. on Tuesday morning. It was an estimated 20 minutes for any driver, as the gentleman, the attorney from the rowing club mentioned. And there were already Save-A-Tree trucks there, in addition to obviously all the incoming traffic. And while I recognize that it has less relevance to this discussion, everything's connected, interconnected, and one needs to acknowledge that there is the state activity that happens when you try and get on 95. So when you look at the traffic pattern from the point of Moody's Avenue to the I-95 entryway, I am relieved to say that I'm alive today because it is an obstacle course. And it should be an embarrassment to the city of Norwalk and the state that this is still happening. It's beautiful that the city has grown and progressed as much as it has. And I have roots in Norwalk. My father owned Jordan's Pizza. He was the original Jordan of Jordan's Pizza, owned Nick's Sports Bar on Isaac Street. As a child, I would leave the basement of Jordan's Pizza and go to the Norwalk Green just so I could enjoy the beautiful, beautiful landscape and hope that someday I could actually get my college education, get out of Norwalk. And here I am, a Riverway resident. Many years later, we don't have to tell you how many. But I also want to, on behalf of my colleagues who've already previously spoken, make a couple of other points. We have to take into account the cumulative traffic that will transpire on that particular portion of East Avenue. That cannot be underscored more. There is traffic danger there on behalf of pedestrians. And I just have to underscore, and it's students, it's commuters. I mean, there's a whole thriving community that did not exist when O&G closed. They say that there's a history of manufacturing and industry. Last I looked, all the factories in Norwalk are now residences. I'm also a former resident of the Clock Tower building. Nevertheless, again, the cumulative traffic that will be happening on East Avenue with 50 axle trucks that aren't even going to be able to get on 95 for another 20 minutes. So they'll be there idle with the diesel fumes in the air. That makes it even more shocking that the staff gave far too much time with this flawed application. This is simple observation on what happens on East Avenue with the current situation. You want to add 50 axle trucks onto that? I can guarantee someone will die. I just hope it won't be me. And again, it really is a travesty to think that O&G was given so much leniency in the process in the time that they were given with what is clearly a flawed application. I will leave it at that. I appreciate your time. And I hope the city does the right thing on behalf of what it purports to say, which is that it will be the greenest city in Connecticut. I want Harry Rilling to be true and earnest to his words, and this decision will certainly show where the city is at on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is John Descala from Head of the Harbor, 1 Smith Street, Norwalk, Connecticut. Thank you, commissioners, for taking the time to come out tonight and online as well. And to all the neighborhood associations and people for gathering and speaking out against this application. I'm in awe of how we all came together for our common goal, and I thank you all. Myself and the entire MF Descala company are opposed to this application. First and foremost, this application affects much more than business, much more than my business here at Head of the Harbor South. It affects the over 100-year community investment that the Descala family has made because we believe in Norwalk, especially the Wall Street area, including the historic trolley barn facility, which we restored back in 1988. This is just one of the many properties that we have invested our finances, love in the Wall Street area. As one of the early adopters, we saw something special here that needed to be preserved. We had a vision to restore the area to the vibrant community that it was prior to the flood of 1955. Since I can remember, Wall Street, Smith Street, East Avenue, and Main Avenue have been my second home, maybe since I was 10 years old. I'd ride my bike from my childhood home on East Rocks Road, and I would just hang out here all day. This was my aftercare. This was my summer camp. I'd work small jobs at Tops Coffee Shop for those who are old enough or my age. Sweep the floors for $1 a day. I'd run around the Pathmark Mall. I would sort sports cars at the Hot Corner baseball card shop. I would hang out with my friend Athena at Gus's Deli on the corner of Commerce and Wall Street. I would frequent Sonny and Bill's for all my sports equipment and went to the movie theaters on Isaac Street and Wall Street before it was a music venue. I'd walk around Kittytown and all the Cabbage Patch Kid dolls, Nintendo games, and G.I. Joes. I can tell you where I was when I bought this or where I was when I did that. So for anyone here or watching online who thinks that my only interest in objecting O&G on Smith Street is strictly business, I hope you now know that this area is my roots. As I grew older, I moved into the Trolley Barn apartment buildings on Wall Street, where I lived for 4+ years. I noticed that the area started to get a little stagnant. This was due to many reasons, but over the last 10 years or so, maybe 10+ years or so, I've noticed that through the efforts of the residents, owners, and businesses, that this area has finally started to make a change for the best. The area has since grown in residential population from East Avenue to Wall Street and all along the river on Smith Street, where we moved our offices to head of the Harbor South. Since then, the area has made a meteoric transformation with more feet on the street from apartments, businesses, office space, restaurants, and more, making the entire area a place that a lot of people have come to call home due to its great downtown appeal that is on the water, close enough to anywhere you need, safe, quiet, and quaint, all at the same time. So naturally, when I opened the notification letter from O&G, not everyone got, but I'll get to that, about their plans, it felt like a gut punch, not only to my properties, but to the entire area. When I opened up the actual application and examined the documents, I was dumbfounded and immediately began to organize plans to oppose this. I was in disbelief that this was even being considered at this large scale after over a decade of laying idle as a heavy industrial site. Little side note, my father, Michael Descala, had a conversation with Matt Oneglia from O&G and asked him, why are you going to reopen the site? My father, knowing what he knew about the former plant being shut down from prior conversation years ago with Matt Oneglia, never would have built Head of the Harbor if O&G was going to reopen the site. Also, when Mr. Oneglia was asked by my father a couple months back if he would put it in writing that O&G would not open the asphalt portion of the plant, of the site, Mr. Oneglia denied that request. Again, he denied the request to sign something that he would not reopen the asphalt portion of the plant. For the record, this community isn't anti-growth. We are against having our quality of life threatened. Our quality of life and safety threatened by an industrial giant like O&G, whose proposed activity would endanger thousands of people who live, work, and shop in our growing community on a daily basis. We are not against all industry. We are opposed to the neighborhood. We are opposed to any neighbor that will devalue or degrade our health, our quality of life, and our homes and our businesses. We are opposed to increased traffic to the neighborhood and pedestrian walked roads by having triaxle trucks carrying loads up to 15, or as Mr. Warren said, up to 25,000 pounds or 20,000 pounds going up and down our streets 50 times a day, 80 times a day, 30 times a day, whatever the number is going to grow to according to O&G's data. Or data, sorry. We are opposed to diesel truck fumes polluting the air we breathe, and know that there is little to any enforcement in idling and in the CT idling laws. We are also opposed to the noise pollution created by this proposed activity by trucks downshifting, jake braking, driver horns, backup beepers, and empty trucks that rattle and slam when they're in the back. Someone figure that word out. Sorry, we are opposed to the increase in traffic safety hazards turning onto Moody Lane, which will force us to use more if Hubble is now congested with, okay, yeah, sorry. If Hubble is now more congested because the traffic light, that's how they exit, then we're gonna have to exit through Moody more, because who wants to be behind triaxles on Moody Lane, on Hubble's? Well, going out of, that's very dangerous to leave out of Moody's. If you've ever left Moody's before, I suggest you try. It's not fun. Fun fact. Did you know that the three biggest causes of triaxle trucks are? Did you know what the three biggest triaxle crash? Let me try this again. Did you know the three biggest causes of triaxle trucks are uneven roads, uneven loads, and bad line of sight? Moody and Hubble Lane check all three of those boxes. Number 4 on that list is bad brakes. So if you're making them come in off Moody, which is a 30-foot downhill windy road, remember at the bottom of Moody Lane, before the turn, the rowing school that facilitates young rowers and the river itself are going to stop that runaway truck. Hate to sound grim, and one of those two things will unfortunately meet, and that's not good. You do that in your head. We are opposed to the proposed 10 to 12 barges clogging up the Norwalk River for the hundreds of boaters, rowers, and negative impact it will have on our wildlife. In the last attempt to appease you, the applicant changed their plans to include 8 barges. We are opposed to that number as well, because we all know that 2 to 4 barges just means 2 to 4 larger loads. We're opposed as pedestrians who love to walk the Riverwalk along the O&G site on Smith Street and see the piles of garbage while cars and trucks fly by or unsafe walking and biking conditions, as there is still no legal sidewalk or adequate lighting on that road. And as someone mentioned before, there's over 100 or 200 and something people who live on Smith Street between the condos and head of the harbor. And we're not the only ones who use it. The only Riverwalk conversation I remember involving this entire application was during the April 3rd meeting when Commission member Bryce Chapin asked Attorney Succi about connecting the Riverwalk. And I understood her reply that the Riverwalk along the water would be dangerous with barges and cranes. Makes sense. Commissioner Chapin had concerns regarding the connection of the Riverwalk along the roadside for pedestrians and bikes, saying paint the cement walls and adding landscape to pretty up the area. A little backstory for you. When going through the approvals for head of the harbor, we had to install Riverwalks all along the back of our property with 6-foot wide cement sidewalks. This is the city's vision along the waterfront. We had no quorums about doing it. Why should O&G be any different? They should be made to install a Riverwalk to connect us to the other Riverwalk and behind the condos. If O&G wants to put a sidewalk along Smith Street due to safety issues and aid the hundreds of pedestrians, bicyclists, and strollers on a daily basis, then I'm all for it. But there's a big problem with putting a sidewalk on Smith Street. If you're adding 15,000-pound triaxle trucks that are 11 feet wide, that's the radius they need to get through gates. So they need to be 10 and a half feet wide. I will let my traffic engineer, Mike Monteleone, explain that during his presentation on why that's not feasible. We aren't against O&G's smoke and mirror. We are against O&G's smoke and mirror statements that we are taking the trucks off the state roads and putting them on the river. Said by Richard Warren during a meeting. Instead, O&G will transfer the wear and tear and safety hazards to our local roads, paid for by your local citizens. What a great neighbor. With the piles of aggregate proposed to be on site, the whole area is worried about the dust pollution that could affect us. We are concerned about our personal property, which will be covered by dust, concerned to even open our windows or even go outside for some fresh air. Sorry that a lot of this is a repeat, but it's important. So roughly 10 plus years ago, O&G abandoned their site, contrary to what Attorney Succi and O&G's representatives have stated multiple times during their prior application meetings. In fact, during the April 3rd, 2024 Planning and Zoning Application Review, the question was asked by Planning and Zoning Commission Member Tammy I'm sorry, Langelis? Langas, thank you. Sorry. If she could go and see the site for herself, to which Attorney Suchi and ONG denied that request at the present time due to safety issues, and then confessed there is some activity going on from ONG, in quotes. I've driven by that site daily for the last 7 years and have video and picture evidence, and unless ONG puts PIRO on all of their trucks and machinery, as in Piro Paving, then I must have failed me some grammar school. Again, for the record, I want to make it very clear, ONG has not been active on this site for roughly 10 plus to maybe 15 years. Planning and zoning has stated on more than one occasion that this current tenant who's on their site today is currently acting illegally on their property. Okay, I would next like to point out some errors in description in their narrative on their application. On the very first page of ONG's application narrative, second paragraph, the property is bordered, in quotes, the property is bordered by Smith Street to the east, the Norwalk River to the west, and other parcels to the north and south, which is used for industrial purposes. That is incorrect. Condos and apartments are not classified as industrial. This simple but tactical wording here implies that there is no residential in this immediate area. As well as a third paragraph, where once again, it states that ONG has owned and occupied many of these parcels for more than 30 years. Would someone please explain to me the true definition of occupancy is? Because I just can't figure it out since they haven't been there for over 10 or 15 years. Does having an illegal tenant subletting the land count towards occupancy? I'm going to skip this part for offending people. So one of the easiest steps in this whole application process is to notify neighbors and adjacent property owners of this application. When all of us neighbors got together for the first time in March, we were wondering, where the hell's the boat club? I'm sorry for saying hell. Where's the boat club? Why aren't they here? A week went by, still couldn't find them. Couldn't figure out why they're not coming. Finally, on May 7th, I got in touch with one of the members and I said, what's going on? They said, we have no clue what you're talking about. I showed them all the site applications and everything, and they're on board. But they said they had no idea this was going on. And here's more proof. I showed the members of the boat club the application page with all of the address notices that were sent, and not one of those addresses belonged to any of the members or entity of the boat club. Interesting. Now, granted, ONG isn't exactly abutting the boat club by zoning definition, but the Norwalk Boat Club's future, an establishment with over 100 years in business on the harbor, whose future is at stake, you'd think as a friendly gesture, or at least out of decency, Attorney Suchi would reach out to them with a notice. Nope, not a word. In fact, during the April 24th, 2004 Harbor Management Commission, Attorney Suchi stated, and I quote, notice was sent to neighbors in accordance with the zoning commission regulations. As a matter of fact, the notice was sent included others that typically would not be sent because we thought as an applicant, this was important to let individuals have notice of what was pending. But nobody, end quote, but nobody sent the notice to the boat club. I find this omission purposeful and damaging, putting stress on neighboring sites, which will potentially put them out of business or change their quality of life, should be grounds for immediate denial of this application alone. I won't get into some of these erroneous ones. These are just kind of, yeah. So, yeah, I will. Why not? Another document containing falsehoods that I would like to place into the record is a staff internal memo that was dated March 12, 2024 by a planning and zoning member, Michelle Andruski, stating the following two statements that maybe someone can email me the answers to these. I don't need an answer right now. The Norwalk Asphalt Plant is the Norwalk Asphalt Plant is a backup and local larger scale projects. The plant was activated during the construction of the Sono Mall. According to Wikipedia and everyone else in the immediate area, August 17th, 2017 was a groundbreaking for the Norwalk Mall. So the above comment cannot be accurate in order to set a placeholder on occupancy by the applicant if this is what they're trying to seek. O&G has a dredging vessel to maintain, that's comment number 2 from Michelle Andrzejewski. O&G has a dredging vessel to maintain the channel. They dredged for the boat club to the north of their site, the Norwalk Boat Club, to help out a neighbor and spread goodwill. The Norwalk Boat Club already stated they never dredged for them. So I don't know, and this is my next statement. This is no offense to Michelle Andrzejewski from what department she works in, as she's just gathering information, but who gave her those answers and who did the fact checking on this? Because this is an internal document, and I just want to know, are they taking everything that they say as gospel? Okay, the Harbor Commission. I know you guys aren't a part of the Harbor Commission, but here we go. Harbor Commission made a grave error in judgment by not reopening their referral to the Planning and Zoning Commission about this application once it came to light by a commissioner that much of the information had been missing or was skewed from the application and its impact on the harbor and boat of the Norwalk Harbor, the Norwalk Boat Club. And we're not talking about like wrong dates or, but you know, small things. We're talking about the wrong sizes of barges and the wrong placement of the barges on the application, the site plan. Pretty much to sum this up in a, this huge paragraph up here, you're missing slack ropes. You're putting down the wrong sizes of barges for Divine, and you're putting the wrong sizes of the barges for yourself if you plan to really use 35-foot wide barges. And you're saying that you have a 40-foot clearance in there. If you add the slack rope and you add the real barge width that everyone's using nowadays, there's a 0 opening, which was stated earlier by the Norwalk last week by the Norwalk Boat Club. To put that in I won't even get into that, guys. Sorry. Let's put it this way. Also, recently it was announced that the Wall Street area is due to receive $25 million in long overdue infrastructure renovations. This will include street work, crosswalks, lighting, cobblestone, and many more cosmetically appealing things that this area has been waiting for. This project will begin in, hopefully this summer, if I read that correctly. How would a 15,000-pound triaxle truck improve this revitalization of the Wall Street area? Cobblestone roads and pedestrian-friendly village-type area does not stand a chance against a 15,000-pound triaxle truck. And finally, I'll leave you with this. All of their barges and triaxle numbers are just that, numbers. Unless there is an effective enforcement process to ensure that this applicant is not violating their permit, then it's just numbers. And who will actually enforce how many barges are clogging up the river? The harbor master has been overworked. The policing barges while counting how many have exceeded for the month. Is TMP going to stand by the O&G gates punching a truck counter like a concert doorman as triaxles come in and out of their streets, seeing if they've hit that magical number that got them this application approved? Will TMP appoint an employee to ensure the entering and exiting of triaxles use the assigned Moody's and Hubble's lane? Same thing applies to the newly revamped $25 million Wall Street area. Who will assure all of the hard work that we've been waiting for isn't going to be ruined by soot and triaxle trucks? Or will enforcement sadly be left up to the neighborhood walkers, bicyclists, rowers, boaters, who will have to see these trucks daily? Dust rolling off the back and countless barges over and over again while using a buddy system, acting as part-time patrol guards, doing a job that's not ours to begin with, ruining our quality of life until everyone just gives up. And then we all leave the area because we just gave up. And then the area just looks like the flood of 55 again, because we just had enough. Or will we once again band together, arm in arm, like our neighborhood cities in Bridgeport in 2016, like they did against O&G, and Stanford in 2009, as they did to fight back and say, we're not going to take it anymore. Mayor Rilling and the Common Council had declared that they wanted the city of Norwalk to be the greenest city in Connecticut. We would love to help our city achieve this. However, this application is contradicting this goal. In fact, just this past Sunday on News Channel 12, Mayor Rilling was being interviewed by News 12 reporter Mark Sudol when questioned about ONG's application, their use on Smith Street came up and wanted the mayor's thoughts, to which Mayor Rilling stated, no, he did not think it was a good use for Norwalk, and then stated his reasonings. If the leader of our great city is against the application and took the time to speak out publicly, that speaks volumes. Please do not let this flawed and fluffed application pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has not yet spoken who wishes to speak?
Good evening, Commission. My name is Matt. I am the Matt O'Nalia that everybody keeps referring to with regards to this application. I do appreciate everyone's time, both last week and tonight. We've heard, the comments over the last couple of days from the public, both, some valid, both some wildly invalid. And comments of, well, both of which, are some of which are accurate, some of which are not. Contrary to popular belief, this is a valuable asset to ONG, and we can debate the merits of occupancy and use at another night or another time with our attorneys. At this point, we'd like to withdraw our application. We'd like to work with staff going forward to develop the property in a way that's beneficial to us and the city. There's a few things that I would like to clarify and point out. Some of which, we talk about the benefit to the city over the years, which we've had talked about over the last within the application in terms of an emergency use for both hurricanes and recent events, the Sono Mall build, where we were asked on somewhat of an emergency basis to help out there. We also offered the site when the bridge on 95 went down and traffic was backed up for 3 or 4 days. The one point of contention that I really would like to stress tonight is the boat club to the north. I'm going to read you a letter just so it's clear and on the record. This is from a member of the boat club. I'm not sure if it's the Commodore or not. Please accept that this is to an employee at ONG who spent a lot of time working with them on the dredging. Please accept the enclosed gift as a token of Norwalk Boat Club's appreciation for your help and assistance with successfully completing the dredging of the club's marina. A small boat club like ours is always struggling with changing regulations and threatens the survival. You helped us a great deal. So with that, I apologize for everybody's time this evening, and we'll work with you going forward.
May I state something for the record?
Yes.
Just in response to Michelle Andruski is the senior planner with the city. The email that was referred to, she was doing some research with me based on conversations that we had with ONG during the industrial waterfront study. Those were comments relayed to us. They were not anything beyond that point. So there was comments made about staff errors. There was not a staff error involved at any point with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I thank all of you who have spoken. Obviously, we're closing the hearing, but we do have some other business we need to conduct unrelated to this matter. So we're going to continue to move forward. You're welcome to remain, but if you wish to leave, that's fine. We'll wait a minute or two before we go on with our business. Attorney Green?
Yeah, just briefly, Mr. Chairman, I just feel the need to comment, and I wanted to just an opportunity to make this comment to the commission. And it is that and I was going to make this in my presentation. First of all, I appreciate the gesture of ONG. But I wanted to emphasize that I have been practicing land use and land use related litigation for too long and for a long time, and I appear in many towns. And I just have to comment that this commission, I am so impressed with your the way that you encourage, welcome, and accept public comment in an unrestricted way. And I think it's I really have to commend the commission. It's unique, and with your patience and your attention on these applications is something that I don't see in most towns. And I just wanted to put that on the record. And on behalf of my client, I want to thank you. And I also, again, want to acknowledge ONG's gesture here. And we look forward to working with them in the future with respect to this. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for your, I'll wait till Tammy comes back. If you want to take 5. This is me for doing
We still have an agenda.
And staff as well. Thank you.
I believe so.
You do have,
We do have an agenda for tomorrow night.
yeah, and there is an item you have to open tonight.
Yes, that was
All
going to
3
be.
items you should open. The
So
2
we
hearings
still-
you've already
we still
opened
meeting
need to
tomorrow?
just Move to continue till tomorrow night, but Cranberry subdivision has to be tomorrow night. They're not here. They weren't planning on presenting tonight, so you can adjourn for tonight. You just take all the business tomorrow unless you want to take care of the minutes, or you can do it's however you want to do. You have 3 options.
You know, the commission has been incredibly patient, so let's open and continue these hearings and then let's adjourn. And we have to get together tomorrow. We can address the rest of this tomorrow.
I'm just disappointed it was good to go over my really thorough memo.
There's never a dull moment on this commission.
No.
Never. Larry, you want to pause it for closing up 5 minutes?
What's that?
Pause for like 10 minutes?
That's the same. Simply have to open and continue to tomorrow night. The first of those being 2024-17 SUB. That's Andy Sumalides, 70 Cranberry Road, proposed 2-lot subdivision to construct 2 new single-family residences, existing structures to be demolished. Can I have a motion to open?
Make a motion.
Okay, and is there a second? All those in favor? Okay, now separate motion to continue that to tomorrow night. Richard has made the motion. Tammy has seconded.
And move for the record, we can't discuss it because the applicant is not here.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could we call them?
With a raise of hands, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, the next, planning and zone, 2024-27R. Planning and Zoning Commission zoning regulation, text amendment to Article 4 and Article 9 to revise the definition of lot or building site width, the location of where recreational vehicles are permitted to be stored in all zones, facade requirements for duplexes in the CD2 zone, and window and facade requirements for the mixed use and industrial zones. Can I have a motion to open the hearing? Richard has moved, Tammy has seconded.
Or to continue the hearing.
Oh, you want to just do it as a single motion? All right, this is a motion then, as long as
Tomorrow.
to continue it to tomorrow.
Completely by Zoom.
Yeah. We have it scheduled for hybrid, so we have to figure that, I mean, worst case, I'll sit up here and hang out.
There's
Okay, show of hands,
Yes.
all those in favor.
no public hearing.
Yeah, there are 3 public hearings, but we've done them by Zoom.
Oh, okay.
The third, 2024-33 are Planning and Zoning Commission, zoning regulations, text amendment to Article 4 to amend the residential building height determinations and modifications to frontage, building types permitted in the CD4 zone. Okay, motion to continue tomorrow night. Nick? Rich seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Aye, okay. Steve, any comments?
No, unless you want, no.
Comments from any of the commission members?
Two things. One, on the housing, affordable housing study front.
Yes,
They presented on Monday, like the first findings of like the facts. There's been some press around it, but more to come on that. With the phase that is moving in is policy ideas. So that hope, Steve, correct me if I'm on there, like October, getting it done through the summer into the fall.
Yeah, we hope to have the draft out for public comment in the fall.
So, and then like a lot of the stats are what you would expect to see, just no affordability, no.
right.
Stuff pretty much word for word that Brian and Steve said
Right.
throughout the rewrite process.
Yeah, I'll send, I'm not sure, I'll have Michelle send the link out to the actual document.
Yeah.
And they'll send the link out to the YouTube video. The video is pretty high level, but if you go through the report, there's a lot of detail.
There's a lot of details. It wasn't a hard read.
Right, okay.
The other thing is, I don't know what folks are feeling on this, but I'm seeing more and more of these vape shops just opening up all over the city. I know we tried to restrict them some, but I don't know.
Yeah, I know Darius has strong feelings about that too.
Yeah, we have a couple in front of this citation hearing officer next month.
I was gonna say, do we want to consider moving or changing the use? I know we meant to like NP or something, or make it more restrictive or. changing-
Yeah, I'm almost thinking with this one, I mean, it's something we need to talk with the law department too about, just
Okay.
not allowing them, because the problem is if you have like a gas station who's got a little bit, there's so many little problem areas that for us to try to track this.
Totally.
It's almost like a police matter now.
Right,
It is, yeah,
right.
and well, they're also selling marijuana.
Exactly.
It's the real problem.
I've been talking with the zoning enforcement officer about it, and these are the new regs that we put into effect, like are just now starting to use those new regs to issue violations and then cite these places. So it has to sort of go through that process. But I think there are some areas where the regulations could be tightened prior to like an NP or something.
Steve, why don't we, when things slow down a little bit, why don't we have it as an agenda item?
And
Okay.
Steve, could we invite John to the meeting to discuss it, or
I'll probably
Tammy?
have- I could probably have Tammy there. Yeah, we've been meeting about that. I actually had staff has already, and I mean, it could be outdated already, about a month ago, inspected all the basic main commercial corridors, and we flagged all the ones that we knew about, illegal or legal. So we're trying to go back and figure out who was permitted for what.
Yeah, it's like one just opened up in the old Dutch shop on Main Ave. But you remember that old, not Main Ave, on Washington?
Yeah,
used to just have like.
Yes.
Dutch Stuff, that's now a
Right.
vape shop.
There's a problem one on Washington, there's one up right off Wall Street that.
Yeah, one opened up
Right.
by me.
And we told them, don't open up before they opened up, and they opened up.
Right.
anyways.
Okay,
The main fish.
okay, so we know what we're gonna do about that. Any other comments from commission members before I entertain a motion to adjourn?
For your umbrellas.
Got mine. Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, move.
Richard has moved. Diana has seconded. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor? Thank you all for your patience.
You, Lou.